On today's show, we'll be sharing our final thoughts on the DC Universe before the podcast comes to an end. We'll reflect on the numerous projects we've reviewed on the show, as well as discuss the outlook that we have for the future of the iconic franchise. Plus, we'll hand out some awards for some of our favorite and not so favorite moments from DC's history over the last quarter century. But before we get to any and all of that, we're kicking off this week's podcast with a brief programming update about what we'll be doing here on Two Black Nerds for the next few weeks. So we only have about 4 episodes of the podcast left. And so we wanted to take the next few weeks to kind of give a final assessment on these different brands and franchises that not only do we love so much, but the ones that we've talked about a ton here on Two Black Nerds. And so, as I mentioned in the intro, we're going to be starting off that series today by talking about DC. Next week, we'll spend some time talking about Star Wars. And then the week after that, we'll talk about Marvel and the future of the MCU before we wrap everything up with our mailbag episode and the final episode. But I find this an interesting time to do this exercise because obviously we are bringing the podcast to an end. But when you think about the history of this show, we started it at the end of 2019, right before COVID. And I would say at that time, we were still kind of in the honeymoon happy phase of like all of the stuff being pretty good for the most part.
Yeah.
It was kind of the birth of the streaming wars that hadn't really kicked off yet. Marvel was still riding high. DC obviously had a lot to still work out, but it was off of the back and success of Joker and Aquaman where we started to see maybe some of those fortunes change. Star Wars, although the rise of Skywalker was shaky, we were very optimistic about the future with The Mandalorian. You fast forward about 5.5 years throughout the entire existence of this podcast, and we are in a much, much different place now than where we were when we started this show. And it's just interesting because I think all of these iconic franchises, they're kind of at these forks in the road, these transitional periods, and we're on the precipice of some really, really big things. We're going to talk a lot about the DC stuff today. When you think about Star Wars, we kind of alluded to it a few weeks ago, maybe the ousting or the stepping down of Kathleen Kennedy and the transition of power over there. Marvel, of course, we know is on the precipice of releasing 2 new Avengers movies, which is going to be really, really huge for them. What are your thoughts on just where we are right now, just in totality, as we start to embark on this project for the next few weeks? What are your feelings just about where things were when we started all those years ago to compare to like where we are now and just how things have just drastically changed over those years?
I think you said it best where, 2019, we are in somewhat of a honeymoon phase. Not everything is perfect, but everything is generally pretty good. Like we're coming off some pretty high highs, really across the board, in terms of what I think all of these franchises and properties can do at the moment. I think we were excited about the potential of everything that was to come, and it's just so interesting, thinking about it now, where we are in a fork in the road, and we are having a moment where the changing of everything is just different, and it's not just like these little small changes. Like we're talking about huge, big changes that are happening in all of these different realms and projects that I think are it's really going to dictate what the next decade looks like for all of these things, for nerd culture, at least in a cinematic and probably TV landscape, is going to be for a while. And I think we're in a lot of ways, we're not coming down from the high, because I think we've kind of come down from the high for a while now, but it's more so like we did the thing, what's next? And I think that's really the question for all of this. It's what is next, and we're starting to see again all of these different properties start to put things on the table of this thing. We have to go into a new direction. There's been too many walls being hit. There's been too many. The box office for a lot of these things hasn't looked good. The success of a lot of these things hasn't looked good, at least consistently. That's probably the biggest thing here, is the consistency of all these things. A lot of these things haven't looked good consistency, and the question is, where do we go from here, man? And so from very different, I think, from when we entered this thing. Again, we had bright eyes. We were excited to talk about it. Not that we're not excited to talk about this stuff now, but I think we're a little bit more realistic about the things we've gotten since then. And now it's time for really all of these properties to nut up or shut up. It's time to either you get it done, or there's something else that's going to take the place. The realm of the superhero blockbuster, it feels like it's kind of fizzling out. Can it be saved? And I think that's a good question, that they're trying to answer right now. So man, where we are is it's all still a big question mark. But I think it has been interesting to see how everything has changed within these past 5 years.
5 years is enough of a test run to see if something is working or not working. And in the case of all of these different franchises, in the case of streaming and what that's done with the industry, we've gotten a pretty good sample at, okay, this either did or did not work. And now we need to decide like what that next step or what that pivot is going to look like. And coming into all of this, it's no accident that it was really at the same time that the streaming wars kicked off. 2019, Netflix is still really
Mm-hmm.
the only big game in town
True.
until every other studio, every other major company decided to really enter into the market in a major way. And
Mm-hmm.
that in and of itself, I think is probably alongside COVID, of course, which nobody could have predicted, but that is the sole reason in a lot of respects as to why all of these different franchises have taken really, really drastic turns compared to probably where they would have been prior to the streaming era, maybe back in the mid 2010s when things were a little bit different back then and you still heavily relied on box office success and theatrical movie going. But now these different arms of these different companies have tried to really lean into that content creation game and spending billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I think a lot of people saw the streaming gold rush, thought that there was a lot of fortune to be had. And it turns out, not really. That's not really been the
Mm-hmm.
case because nobody has been able to supplant Netflix. They have just pulled away and have gotten so far ahead of everybody else because they did start this whole thing. And I think everybody else just had to kind of have the wake up call and realize, oh shit, we have to scale back and we have to contract. And things are a
Yeah.
lot smaller and tighter and much more laser focused now. There's so many more eyes on these things and so many more decision makers because there are really a lot of people's jobs and futures kind of relying on the success of many of these projects that we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks. And it's just a really interesting place to be because, yeah, in 2019, I think it felt like that the world was in front of us. The possibilities were limitless. There was a lot of excitement, like, oh, we're just going to get more of the stuff that we love. Well, it turns out that's not always a good thing because a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
more turned out to be really, really bad more. It wasn't good more. And so,
Right.
that Kylo Ren meme is just like more, 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 and it's like
Mm-hmm.
wait, not that much, not that much. Like pull back, don't do any more. So it's been interesting to sit and observe and talk about that stuff. Obviously, for the past five plus years, but here we are again at this really interesting inflection point for all of these different major iconic franchises. And so these next 3 weeks are going to be interesting. But today we're starting off with DC. DC has probably, I don't know, they've probably suffered the most out of everybody, if we're being honest. And these
Yeah.
conversations that we're going to be having between DC, Star Wars, and Marvels, they're going to be really laid back, going to be really fun. A lot of reminiscing that's going to happen, but then obviously some hopeful projection about what the future can look like. But DC, man, my beloved DC, they have gone through the ringer
Yeah.
with so many different changes and leadership changes and pivots and different directions and controversies and mishaps and just all sorts of stuff that's really prevented them from, I think, realizing the full potential of what we know them capable to be. We know that
Mm-hmm.
they have a certain potential that we haven't quite seen realized on a consistent basis. There's probably been flashes and moments, but nothing
Yeah.
significant that's instilled a ton of confidence, I think, in moviegoers. And so when you look at just the last 5.5 years of DC projects that we've talked about on this show, that we've
Mm-hmm.
gotten in any medium, live action, theatrical, animated television. I mean, what's your outlook? What's your overall sort of takeaway just on the amount of things that we've gotten? Because I think it's probably safe to say we've gotten more DC properties in certain mediums than we ever have before. But again, that
Mm-hmm.
might not always necessarily result in a positive thing.
Yeah, for a while, honestly, even since before, of course, the podcast and DC EU does get started. Zack Snyder's supposed to helm the entire thing. There's a need to feel like we need DC had a need to feel like they needed to catch up to Marvel, and 2019 and on, it really feels like they never slowed down on that. They always kind of felt like, hey, we gotta put them out. Like we're gonna continue to put out these movies. Sure, some of them are doing okay in the box office. Again, not all of them. Some of them are doing okay in the box office. Let's keep moving on. And it's so interesting to me because they never they never really stopped and said, you know what, maybe we should slow down. Like they just never came to that conclusion. And I think they had the opportunity to too. But money is such a huge thing, of course, in this industry. And they want to continue to put out as much as they can and fill the box office and say, hey, Marvel does have their thing going on, but we have our thing too. We have this movie coming out this year too. We have this movie coming out this year too. And instead of running their own race, I think they ended up, becoming their own villains, honestly, by not allowing themselves to just be themselves. They really ran a lot of stuff into the ground, and so yeah, we did get a lot of movies in these past 5 years. Man, it's kind of crazy looking at the list of all the movies we reviewed on this show, because it's like, man, y'all did all of this in this short amount of time, and unfortunately, a lot of it was disappointing. A lot of it was honestly either mid or worse than that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that level of quality over quantity does speak to, again, how dominant Marvel was. But again, DC wanted to catch up and to be part of that conversation. And I think we see by the wrap up of all of it that it just didn't work out for them. And yeah, man, it's money talks, and that's what they chased.
Well, not only that, it was almost impossible for them to really succeed just due to infrastructure and how things were ran, and the fact
Yeah.
that they've had so many leadership changes. When this all started with Man of Steel, you still had Kevin Sujihara running the show, and then he got ousted and it transitioned to Walter Hamada, and then AT&T comes in and they purchase the company, and there's a bunch of debt and all sorts of things, and the whole 2021 HBO Max ordeal and controversy really, really took over headlines until ultimately, like, those last few projects that Walter Hamada had greenlit, we got those out the door. And then finally David Zaslav comes in and he's like, you know what, we're stopping all of this. We're putting a nail in this coffin. He brings in James Gunn and Peter Safran. You just can't sustain any success when you have all of these different people with different motivations, different agendas coming in, and nobody's leaving their true stamp on what a singular vision and direction is supposed to be. And we've talked about this on the show. This is nothing new. I think people know this. Kevin Feige's been there since the beginning. He was there pre-beginning. He was there before they even had a real Marvel Studios. Right. And so you had one guy who was always steering the ship. DC just never had that, nor were they ever a proper studio. They were never their own division. They always had to answer to Warner Brothers, and the ladder and the corporate structure didn't allow for that same freedom and oversight that Kevin Feige was ultimately awarded when he was at Disney. In fact, when that became an issue at the time in the release of Civil War, and he was going to war with the Marvel Council in New York, and he was in LA, and they were trying to send notes in about, not having a Black Panther movie and not doing a Captain Marvel movie because, Black people and women, they're not going to sell toys. And Kevin Feige's like, well, what the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? These are very viable properties. And then ultimately Bob Iger's like, no, you're going to be your own studio. Now you don't have to answer to those folks. Like, that could have easily derailed Marvel too. I don't think people think about that. Like, they could be in a very similar predicament. And DC just dealt with that from the beginning. And that is a lot of their story, unfortunately. And in that, you'll get some successes. You'll get some hits occasionally. A filmmaker might come in and have a really, really strong vision, and they get the freedom that they probably should have, and they can, take them to new heights and new places. But few and far in between that ever happened. And so, out of all of the projects that we've reviewed, I think here on this list there are 27 different things in different categories. Let's start with movies in particular. You started to allude to it, but of course, we launched the show with Joker, our review of Joker back in 2019. Academy Award-winning movie for Joaquin Phoenix, billion-dollar hit, hugely successful. After that, we reviewed Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Suicide Squad, The Batman, DC League of Super Pets, Black Adam, Shazam Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and then most recently, Joker Folie à Deux. So these movies all came after the beginnings and the origins of the DCEU. This is post Zack Snyder at this point, technically. So we're in a phase of confusion. Like, where are they going to go? Are they going to do a hard reset? Are they going to just like stick to the plan and get these movies out? It was just a weird state of things because of all the controversy around Justice League and the Zack Snyder debacle and some of those earlier failures that didn't perform as well. But there are, again, some successes here. You did get,
Yeah.
Wonder Woman in 2017 did hugely well. Joker comes out. It's not a DC movie. It's a Warner Brothers movie that uses a DC character, but still,
Hmm.
it's a part of the collection, I would say.
Yeah.
But then after that, it gets pretty rough once you get into the COVID era, and then anything after that. I mean, there's not really any financially viably successful movie here. Maybe some that barely broke even, but nothing that was of the success of an Aquaman or a Wonder Woman or
Right.
hell, even a Batman v Superman by this point. So
Hmm.
we got a lot
Hmm.
of the duds in terms of a commercial standpoint. That's all we really had to work
We
with. Some
did.
some were critically good, but we got a lot of duds. So what's your overall outlook on just where the show and how we talked about this property and this franchise? What does your outlook fall with just like the projects that we got and just the sort of the, I guess, the release nature of them and how we had to sort of navigate those waters, not really understanding what the vision for the franchise was?
Yeah, because there really wasn't one. And a lot of these properties feel like the movie that came before it was decent. So maybe we should do something with it. Like Shazam, people critically, the first Shazam did pretty well. Well, let's make Fury of the Gods. Okay, and I feel the same way about Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom. You just said it. First Aquaman does pretty well, box office and decently critically. Well, let's make another one. And I don't know. A lot of this, it really feels like that. The Suicide Squad is literally, hey, that first Suicide Squad. We don't speak about that movie, but James Gunn is going to come and do it. All of these properties really feel like they stemmed from something that was semi-successful or pretty successful before. Wonder Woman 84, the first Wonder Woman, really liked that movie. It did pretty well. They felt like, hey, let's have a follow-up. And that really felt like the direction wasn't a real story direction. It wasn't, like you said, this is post Zack Snyder. So in my mind, there really is no, hey, we got to hit this plot point. We're going to bring it all together and wrap it up. That wasn't really a thing, I feel like. I feel like they were just like, let's try to capitalize off of the things that were either successful or semi-successful before and see how it goes for these next couple of years. And that's really like the energy that feels like that comes from this list of movies. Just like, let's just see what we can do. Joker probably do the same. Joker, really good box office, breaking records and everything. Let's follow it up with Joker. Like everything really felt like a follow-up to something that was either successful or semi-successful.
Which is a good strategy, but
Yeah.
none of these things are leading to, well, what's the end game of it all, right? Like
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
what are we actually building towards? These are all duologies, and there was a time in Hollywood where duologies were pretty popular. It wasn't always a
Mm-hmm.
given that you would get a trilogy. And then there was a
True.
time in the 2000s and 2010s where it was like, oh damn, everything is just getting a trilogy. Like
Mm-hmm.
even if the second movie doesn't do as well to necessitate a third one, like we're just going to make it happen. But the DCU or the DCEU, I think it's going to be remembered as a bunch of duologies that,
Yeah.
yep, the first movie, it either did really well, which, garnered the success of a sequel, or the first one was so shit that we had to do a redo because people were so pissed at the final product that we had to just
Mm-hmm.
go back to the drawing board. Because the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's movie, is like a soft reboot of the movie
Yeah,
that they
for
did in
sure.
2016. And
Mm-hmm.
Zack Snyder's Justice League is just literally him finishing his vision that he never got a chance to. Some of those other films like Aquaman and Shazam, I mean, those are built off the backs of pretty successful first movies.
Mm-hmm.
Where again, 2018, it was like, oh, we might be onto something here. There might be a kernel of something to get us to a promised land for what
Yep.
DC could be. But once we got all of these second movies, it just felt like the Island of Misfit Toys. Like nothing was going
Yep.
anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's working in isolation. Nobody's talking to each other. Like this is all just kind of here, which can be fine. It can be cool, but that's not what we were sold. We were
Mm-hmm.
sold the idea of an integrated, shared franchise universe that would culminate into something for better or for worse. And that's also just the expectations that have been placed on modern storytelling. I think most people just kind of want that now in their franchise storytelling, which, can be a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
On the TV side of things, not as much to work with. And you talk about, just stray things that have nothing to do with each other. I mean, that's the definition of what DC television has been. And it's also interesting because a lot of these TV shows that we have specifically talked about are also coming post a specific era. This is like
Mm-hmm.
kind of the post Arrowverse era on the
Right.
CW, which really got
Mm-hmm.
kicked off around 2012. And
Mm-hmm.
by this time we start the podcast in 2019, certainly there were shows still on. I think Arrow was even still on in 2019. The
It might have
Flash,
been like the end of it.
yeah, like the end of it. The
Mm-hmm.
Flash was still on, but
Yep.
the heyday of that particular cinematic universe or television universe, I think it had come and gone. I don't think it was
Mm-hmm.
really at the top of people's minds. But the first show we talked about was Watchmen, which was pretty successful critically, and I think a lot of people revere that show. We've had the Harley Quinn animated show. Peacemaker was a nice change of pace. James Gunn again coming in doing something completely different with the character that was a spinoff of the Suicide Squad. The Sandman, people might forget about that because it's been a while, but that's a DC
Yep.
property that landed on Netflix. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
faithful adaptation. My Adventures with Superman, we talked about that on the show. Batman Cape Crusader, didn't have many great things to say about that last year. And then most recently, The Penguin, which was definitely a hugely popular show that grew over time that I know we both really, really enjoyed. I don't know really even what to say about the shows here because
Mm-hmm.
there's never been a vision for the shows
Yeah.
in terms of building towards something outside of the Arrowverse, which again was pretty much outside of our purview. We might have talked about Black Lightning a couple of times and
Mm-hmm.
maybe a
Yeah.
crossover here or there, but it was nothing consequential to I think what the larger vision was. So, what are your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on just like the TV output and the stuff that we talked about?
It's interesting because these properties are, I would say, critically way more successful than what we talked about movie wise. But again, these are different shows that have different showrunners, different people coming in and saying, "Hey, I have an idea, let's make this thing." And so I think that's how we get a little bit better quality in the TV shows versus what we get on the movie side of things as well. But yeah, like you said, there's not much to say. Like there was never any vision for the shows, and we're just now about to get it with James Gunn, coming in. But before that, it was just like we're just gonna put out some stuff. TV had been a thing I think DC had been comfortable with doing for a while. Like you said, coming off the Arrowverse, I think they felt more comfortable saying, "Hey, let's do some TV shows. We know we can make this thing work. This property is pretty good over here." And even take some risks. I think Watchmen to me is a pretty big risk for a TV show, which is also what makes it so good too. So something like that is pretty impressive. Harley Quinn, a character everybody loves at this time, is what a crazy different show that we hadn't seen before from an animation standpoint. And I think some of these risks were working out for them. Peacemaker was a risk, but I think they all had specific visions and specific things to make them again pretty successful in my book. But man, there was no beginning, middle, and end for the shows. It was just like, let's put them out. See how they do. We think they'll do well, and again, most of them did. But man, there's not too much to say about it other than that.
Let me ask you this as a follow up because I think one of the things that we tend to maybe ding DC on that I just
Mm-hmm.
alluded to earlier, the lack of singular vision, although that's been a big weakness, particularly on the cinematic side, there's an argument that can be made that might has also served as a strength for some of these things as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the TV shows, these are all coming from different corners of the industry, made by different creators with different visions and different goals. Watchmen is an HBO show, right?
Yeah.
And The
Mm-hmm.
Sandman is a Netflix show, and Harley Quinn is a Warner Brothers animation show. The Penguin also an HBO show. Like these are different divisions within
Mm-hmm.
the company that are developing these stories. Whereas if you look over at Marvel, what we have seen lately now, everything is being developed by one studio with just the
Mm-hmm.
proliferation of things that we've seen on Disney Plus. It's all gonna pretty much feel somewhat similar because the same filmmakers are behind all of
Yeah.
these projects. DC's not going to do that anymore, though, from what we know. It's all going to be under James
Mm-hmm.
Gunn, Peter Safran, maybe a few
Yeah.
exceptions here and there. But how do you feel about that? Because while I look at some of these TV shows and I think large, on a large scale, like maybe it would have been nice to have like a single vision that tied
Mm-hmm.
in with the cinematic universe. Like if that was all that we had, we probably wouldn't get a Watchmen. We probably wouldn't get
Mm.
a Harley Quinn. Like,
Yeah.
is there a drawback to having one person or one creative team running the show? Because they see it one way, and so you might not have those voices at the table who say like, "Wouldn't this be a great idea? Shouldn't we
Mm-hmm.
just sell this show off to a different company that can really develop it and make it something completely unique?" I mean, what do you see as like maybe some of the drawbacks and advantages of that approach?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think with James Gunn coming in and having this one singular vision, I think when you first think about that, it's like, oh, that is a good idea. We should have been doing that. But you kind of make a really good point when you bring up Marvel, who has kind of been doing that on their side of things, but it also to that same point, Marvel Studios in a lot of ways has been breaking their own bread, right? Splitting up their own team to make these different TV shows, and I think it's a little harder when you have to break up one studio versus, like you said, a lot of these properties living elsewhere. And Sandman being on Netflix, that probably doesn't mess with other whatever the Harley Quinn team has going on. That doesn't mess with whatever the Watchmen team has going on over at HBO. And so it does raise my eyebrow a little bit. Like, hey, I wonder what this new reign of TV for DC is going to be and how they plan to map it out from the beginning. And I will say that is, I think, an advantage that James Gunn does kind of have, is like he's trying to conceptualize his TV shows and his movies from the beginning, versus Marvel is like, what, pandemic, we got to start making some shows. You know what I mean? Like, how do we bake this in? And so it's also interesting because they have acknowledged the other world, I forgot, or whatever it's called in DC, right?
Oh,
Where the Batman,
right?
Elseworld, yeah, where Batman and Joker exist. And so maybe there is still potentially some room for that stuff to happen. You know, James Gunn could be like, you know what, that's a good idea. It doesn't fit my universe, but y'all go make that. You know what I mean? I think that might be, maybe some of that stuff still might be on the table. But yeah, man, it is an interesting thought, because I don't want James Gunn to fall into the same thing where we got to put out this TV show, but now we're splitting, we're putting too many eggs in different baskets here, and some of the quality gets lost. Again, I'm hopeful that it will work out, but I think he does have an advantage where he's trying to conceptualize this stuff from the beginning versus we're in the middle of all this. Now let's get it done.
I really wonder how much he's going to continue to allow things outside of his purview to cook. Like the Matt Reeves thing, he inherited that. You really can't do anything about that. That movie was extremely successful, made a lot of money. Matt Reeves is one of the top directors in Hollywood. What are you going to tell him at that point? Doesn't help that The Penguin comes out and it's also a smash hit. So it's like, oh, fuck, we're really stuck with this now. We can't do anything. And I don't know if James Gunn likes that. I don't know if he's like, yay, let's do that, because like he wants to make a Batman movie, and
his
so
own Batman, yeah, that's the problem.
We're going to interrogate that a little bit more with the Batman conversation later, but you know, when I think about that, that does to some degree, it kind of makes me a little cautious, because you know, those benefits of like just having really disparate separate things that don't feel connected to any universe. You don't have to, you know, have any homework or see anything. Like, that's refreshing to just like see something in isolation. Like, you can really just watch The Penguin for what it is. You can just watch Watchmen for what it is. Like, you don't need any of the other baggage. And we've gotten so inundated with so many things in Marvel that's come up many times, just about the massive amount of stuff that you have to watch to be prepared for the next thing that comes down the pipeline. And it's like, Jesus Christ, another thing. Oh my goodness. So I don't know where that's going to go, but it's interesting. It might be a trade-off that DC ultimately has to confront. There were some other things we talked about on the show. I don't know if there's really a ton to be said. We did have a stretch where we were kind of reviewing some of those animated home video releases, but there's just so many of them that come out. It's hard to keep up. We talked about Apocalypse War. There was that weird spinoff Batman Solo the Dragon. One thing we did like was the Long Halloween, the two-part splitting of that. They adapted the Injustice story, not so great. Green Lantern movie, Beware My Power, and a couple of documentaries, the Milestone Generations documentary, which came out a few years ago, and then Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. Again, these are all just like separate, ancillary, miscellaneous sort of pieces and projects that have come along the way that I do think, if anything, this is probably the area that will stay intact moving forward. Like, I don't know if James Gunn's going to be tinkering with Warner Brothers Animation. I don't know if he's going to really have that, because they're their own company. They're their own separate thing. That's why they're able to put out 3, 4, 5 different animated movies a year, because they have their own creative team, their own development team that comes up with these things. But I do wonder if he's going to want to bring that into the fold and have those movies be a part of what he's trying to do cinematically. I just don't know. And again, I wonder whether or not that's going to be a good thing and add on to the pile of stuff that we have to keep up with, or if he just maintains like, hey guys, these are going to be separate, standalone, fun stories that are adapting different popular storylines from the comics. You don't need to see anything else. I just don't know what the outlook of that looks like, and how he's trying to shape that into what he's building out with the DCU.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure either. I think that's something he should talk about more. And we do know he is dipping into animation, but like you said, it does feel very separate from whatever the rest of the DC animation world has going on. I will say DC animation hasn't been as tight here recently as it has been in the past. We kind of been going through it on the
No.
animated side of things. Of DC animation, it's been ooh wee. Usually, I have a movie I'm like really excited about. Almost every year, it was always like one DC animated movie. I'm like, y'all, this is gas. You need to watch this, but I haven't felt that in a while. In a while from those projects. So, man, hopefully they can get it together. But I think I'm with you. I don't see James Gunn coming in and saying, "Hey, I need to make this division part of what I have going on." I think that he'll just always keep that separate because that I think it'll be too much. Like it'll be you know what I mean? Like we're already talking about all this stuff he has going on. We're talking about all this stuff he have on the slate later. Like he has enough happening. So I kind of want him to keep it separate myself. I think.
Yeah, and him and Safran have mentioned potentially doing animated movies on the theatrical side of things, which we
Mm-hmm.
have not seen, which I would be here for if packaged correctly. If we can
Yeah.
make it feel like it could be an animated movie, that's fine, but we still have to make it feel important and big, because I think sometimes some of these home video releases, like they go to home video because they're small. They're
Yeah.
not these big
Mm-hmm.
things. They are
Right.
small. They're only going to be seen by probably the most hardcore fans. The general
Mm-hmm.
audience is not going to watch those. And so how can you take an animated feature length film, put it in theaters, and potentially build something and get the reaction of what we've seen with the Into the Spider-Verse series? Like, how can you make something feel like it
Yeah.
is important, and that it can stand side by side with a live action Superman or Batman or whatever the story is? I think you have to put a lot of time and effort and resources into that. They haven't done that quite yet, but there's a great opportunity to do that, and that's something
Mm-hmm.
Marvel is not doing. And I think that they have nothing but leeway and kind of a really, really great creative team over at Warner Brothers Animation to potentially execute on that. But here's the problem: it doesn't appear that David Zaslav really gives a fuck about animation at all. Like he's kind of
Well.
burying Looney Tunes. I mean, they're selling
Oh my
off
God.
their Looney Tunes properties to the news just broke earlier today that
Mm-hmm.
the Coyote versus Acme movie that was scrapped is now going to be distributed by Catch Up Entertainment, which also just recently distributed the brand new Porky Pig and Daffy Duck movie that just
Mm-hmm.
came
Which you should
out.
go see, by the way. Everybody go see it.
Yeah, it's really good. It's actually a
Yeah,
really
everybody go watch it.
really fun
Mm-hmm.
time. So I don't even know if Zaslav is gonna want this stuff and if he's gonna care
Mm-hmm.
about it, because it feels like animation might be not even secondary to him. It might just be like a non-factor altogether. So I think it just depends on the project and how you package it. Now, in the midst of all the things that we have talked about, there's been a lot of stuff we never got. I think one of the big problems with the DC EU and DC in general, it's just the over promising and the under delivering of just the many different projects, and it really all started back in 2014. I'll never forget it. Marvel had their big presentation that rolled out all of their phase 3 announcements. We learned about Civil War, we learned about Infinity War, we learned that Chadwick Boseman was going to be Black Panther. I mean, it was a bonanza. It was crazy. It was like, oh my god, the
Mm-hmm.
MCU was just on fire right now. And shortly thereafter, DC was feeling the pressure, and they decided on the heels and the release of Man of Steel to announce a full slate of movies. Many of them we never even got. Some of them we did get, but many of them we never got. But it included Batman v Superman, which of course we got. Suicide Squad was on there. We got Wonder Woman. And then it had a Justice League Part 1 and a Part 2. Part 1 was going to come out in 2017. Part 2 was going to come out in 2019. So they were trying to basically rip off the Infinity War formula that Marvel was
Mm-hmm.
was going after. They announced The Flash. They announced Aquaman. They announced Shazam. But then they also announced Cyborg and Green Lantern. This was all going to happen between 2016 and 2020. It was like 10 movies. And
Ridiculous.
we got probably like half of these. Some of them barely made it across the finish line. They probably crawled across the finish line after being battered and bruised along the way. And then two of the Cyborg we never got, Green Lantern we never got. And then just
Mm-hmm.
thereafter, there were just a ton of announced, rumored, canceled, projects that would make it to the tea leaves we would hear about, and they just never saw the light of day. I have a list here. I won't mention all of them, but they included a potential Harley Quinn versus Joker movie that was going to be a spinoff to the Suicide Squad. There was also another Suicide Squad spinoff called Gotham City Sirens. That never happened,
Mm-hmm.
or I guess it kind of morphed into Birds of Prey. They just kind of combined
Yeah.
all of those things into that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Affleck, that was a hoot. Static Shock never happened. New Gods, Ava DuVernay signed up for that. That got canceled. Zatanna, that was a part of that weird announcement from Walter Amada that they were going to make more risky projects for streaming. We were going to put our more risky characters on streaming, no theatrical releases. And then, of course, Batgirl, which was, probably the biggest casualty of a canceled project that we've seen. So how did that also affect the narrative? How did just that inconsistency and the lack of delivering also just affect our perception of them as a brand and as a franchise?
Yeah, everything felt just, I think, again, not put together and lackluster. It's funny because sometimes we do talk about Marvel, who did the same thing. I mean, like all these promises, and then they don't like reach the certain timeline that they promised, or movies also get canceled. But DC was different because there wasn't enough. It wasn't enough success for us to forgive them. Does that make sense? Like there was never enough. Like,
oh yeah, you got to
hey,
deliver to be
you gotta
like
deliver.
you
Exactly.
got a little leeway for me to forgive you and give you time and be patient. Of course.
Exactly. And that's what DC felt like when all these canceled projects were happening, especially a lot of them felt like good ideas too. Like it wasn't the idea that was wrong. It was the why would you promise me something if I could, you know what I'm saying? It's Kevin Garnett. Why would you promise me something if I couldn't have it? Like what are we doing here, man? Like there was too much again, it felt like they were playing catch up. They were like, because Phase 3 was whooping ass and over at Marvel. Phase 3 was whooping ass over at Marvel.
The
so
DC Celtics in the 50s, the Lakers in the
Bruh.
80s. I mean, it was ridiculous what they were doing.
It was ridiculous. So DC was like, how do we catch up? And again, I feel like they sat down and had a lot of good ideas, but the timeline made no sense. In fact, a lot of these, even these canceled projects, didn't. They were good ideas in isolation. They still didn't feel like good ideas in terms of a big picture or like really an end goal. They were just like, oh, that might be a cool movie to see, and that was really it. So like it just gave it gave inconsistency, man. It gave making promises that, and eventually we knew they couldn't keep it. It was like, sure, we'll believe it when we see it. That really felt like DC after a while. It was like, sure, we'll believe it when we see it. Marvel at least could, they might pivot, but they were so much more believable at that time because a lot of those properties were happening. And so, man, we get here and it's just like, man, I'm sorry, I don't believe you anymore. You're gonna have to show us something else before we believe you, man. And yeah, that's kind of one of the reputations they carried for a long time. And honestly, I still have it. It's still some PTSD, even with, man, love James Gunn down, but it's still movies on the docket. I'm like, man, I have to see that. Like, I have to give me a trailer before I know that's really for sure going down. You know what I'm saying? Shoot, trailers don't even work half the time no more. Batgirl, so it's just like, man, I have to see it before I believe it. And that's been their reputation for a while now.
Mind you, I have 8 canceled projects here. This is not even the full list. I got tired of just adding shit because I'm just like, we're not gonna spend a ton of time on this. It's just, it was just happening way too frequently. And this is what I will say also, slightly in defense of them.
Mm-hmm.
Without the internet, without social media, without how privy we are to this shit, this wouldn't even be an issue. Like things get developed and canceled in Hollywood all the time. It's a part of the industry where you might greenlight 100 different projects and you may be lucky if you see 5 of them. And that's just a part of the process. That's a part of the creative process, and just priorities changing, teams changing, all sorts of stuff and factors come into that stuff. But because they had so many failures leading up to, kind of the time where we started really covering them, they just had this microscope on them all the time where it's like every single thing we're going to nitpick it because we've seen you go to bat and you strike out many, many times. And so now you don't have that leeway. You don't have that rope that we can give you. Marvel had a lot of rope for a long time where we can just be like, you know what, it's fine. Ant-Man and the Edgar Wright controversy, that sucked. A lot of people wanted to see Edgar Wright direct that movie, but people didn't really dwell on it that long. It was controversial. It was a thing. I remember it clear as day. But as soon as they announced that he's going to be replaced and they're going to continue with the movie, it was like, okay, all is kind of forgiven. We're going to give it a shot and see what it is. And the movie turned out to be fine. And we gave them a lot of rope because we just knew there's a vision here, there's an end goal here. If they can just come back and make successful movies, that'll be okay. But we just could never extend that same grace to DC because they broke our hearts too many damn times. It was like, oh God, now I gotta kick you while you're down now. We're gonna talk all this shit because you're not gonna give us what we need to see. And I want to call this out as we continue on here. We have compared them to Marvel a lot. It's almost impossible not to. I know there might be some people watching and listening like, stop comparing them, but they brought upon this comparison themselves and this conversation
Yeah.
themselves because they tried to play this game. They tried to get into the
Mm-hmm.
shared cinematic universe game for all of this history. When we get to the later part of the conversation, I think the comparisons will start to, maybe slow down and go away because we're in a new era now. We're going to go into new
Right.
directions. But this
Mm-hmm.
DCEU era specifically, it necessitates that comparison. And what I want to move on to next, just briefly, is kind of just the box office really quickly here. I pulled out all the numbers of the DC extended universe. So just from Man of Steel all the way to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which was the last
Mm-hmm.
DCEU movie. That's 15 movies, right? And so if you look at the total worldwide box office take, collectively, these movies made $7.1 billion globally at the box office, which makes it, at this point, I believe, the 9th highest grossing franchise in Hollywood history.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you this. Take Marvel out of the conversation. Let's just
Yeah.
pretend the MCU was not a thing. Let's pretend that Kevin Feige didn't bless us with one of the greatest experiments in Hollywood history. And
Yeah.
let's just look at this as its own project, as its own track record. When you look at $7.1 billion from 15 films, that ain't too shabby. That's not
No.
bad. I mean,
It's not.
that's not that bad. So
Yeah.
I know we compare, and it's impossible not to. And you look at Marvel's report card, and it's like $30 billion, but nobody's getting close to that. It's just
Yeah, it's a different
it's impractical.
thing.
It's a
Yeah.
ridiculous thing. $7.1 billion, 15 movies. Shit. I mean, that's why you keep making them. That's why you keep
Yeah.
churning them out. I mean, what are your thoughts on just that idea? I mean, should we extend them more grace in that respect? I know a lot of these movies recently did not perform. We talked all about the 2023 slate,
Oh,
how
yeah.
just they massively underperformed. So this number should be higher. I think we can all acknowledge that. But
For
still,
sure.
at the end of the day, $7.1 billion on reported budgets that collectively represent $2.7 billion. And so, again, this is a money-making franchise in totality.
Yeah.
Should we be more graceful in our retrospective thinking about just, what they did critically and commercially for audiences and people that showed up to actually see these movies in theaters?
Man, maybe a little bit. Like maybe that should definitely be part of the conversation. Like say what you want, and then at the end of there's like an asterisk there. It was like, what, the box office is decent. You know what I'm saying? Like you could trash them, be like, but the box office is decent. I think that is something to think about. But at the same time, I think a little bit of it is, and again, this is a little bit of comparison. I have to say it, but like that perfect competition, right? A lot of times we talk about superhero movies in general, like everybody was putting out comic book films, and it was hot, and so it was like a lot of people didn't even know. I don't know, like what some of these movies were, but they would go see it because they knew that comic book movies were hot at the time. And they were like, man, I have to also be in the know. And so I think they do thrive a little bit from a lot of the other energy that came, through the industry of like, oh man, comic books, I got to go see this. I need to go see Justice League out of FOMO. I can't not go see that movie because I know all these people are going to go see that film, and I think that should also be part of the conversation. But I agree. I do think it is comic books at the end of the day, and DC has hella fans. Like I know we talk about Marvel so much, but DC fandom is crazy, and I think it's a little unfortunate because part of the way we do have to talk about DC in light of the way DCEU went in particular, and a lot of these shows that weren't so successful critically went, it always feels like, man, DC is not as good, or there's less fans over at DC, and that's just honestly not the case. A lot of people was going to pull up regardless to go see these movies. So many people were excited about Batman versus Superman and the Flash. They just wanted to see their favorite characters on screen, and I think I still give a little bit of attribution to what DC was able to do with still getting some butts and some seats, man. People really still were excited to see those movies, or at least had some FOMO and wanted to be in the theater. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, we might have to see this film. So I think you're right. I do think we give them a little bit too much hate in terms of how well they did financially, but I think we should add it, maybe tack it on at the end of our conversation sometimes when we are trashing them a little bit and be like, but they did well. They did a little bit better in the box office than people might think.
I agree. I think the smallest ounce of grace and forgiveness
Just
should be
a little
extended.
asterisk.
Just a little, like, by the way,
Yeah.
$7.1 billion did happen. And think about the first few movies, as you mentioned, that time where everybody had to go see comic book movies, regardless of the
Yeah.
brand, regardless of the franchise. Man of Steel, $667 million worldwide. Batman v Superman, $872 million worldwide. Suicide Squad,
Wow.
$745 million worldwide. Wonder Woman, 817. Justice League, definitely not what they wanted, but 655. Aquaman, 1.1 billion. Those first few
God damn.
years, they're hitting the numbers that you would equate
Mhm.
a successful comic book movie to be.
Yeah.
The big problem is, regardless of $7.1 billion as a take from this franchise, it's the law of diminishing returns. Everything after
Mhm.
that drastically underperformed and decreased after that. And that's not what you want. If you have a
Yeah.
franchise and a successful franchise, the hope and the goal is, hey, if we're going to make another one of these, it's going to make more money. It's hard to
Mhm.
do. It almost never happens. And Marvel somehow found the fucking fountain of youth and cracked the Da Vinci Code, whatever they
Yeah.
did. I don't know what they did, made
Mhm.
a deal with the devil, but they were putting out sequels and threequels, and somehow they were making more money every single time. It
Yeah.
really doesn't happen that way most of the time. I think a lot of people, if the first movie is good, they're like, oh yeah, let's go see it. And then a second movie's coming out, and people are like, do we need another one? And then the third movie's coming out, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, we really don't need another one, but maybe we'll see it. So you
Yeah.
do see those diminishing returns, but the drop off for DC, I mean, it went from Batman v Superman, $872 million worldwide, should have been $1 billion movie, but still,
Mhm.
872. By 2023, they would have killed for that.
Mhm.
They would have murdered somebody for that, because you're putting
Yeah.
out The Flash, which becomes one of the biggest bombs in Hollywood history. You only made $271 million at the global
Mm.
box office, and you have all these different things, and Batman and Michael Keaton and all. It's just like, okay, now it's not working. It's all broken. And I
Mhm.
think that's where people place a lot of their memory upon, as opposed to maybe looking at the collective. Collectively, it's a pretty cool number. It
Yeah.
did pretty well,
Mhm.
especially when you compare it to other franchises. But it's hard to not look at some of these things in isolation and just remember, like, oh yeah, this didn't do what it needed to do. So I think that's gonna wrap it up on the DCEU stuff specifically, because that's dead, that's gone, that's buried.
Goodbye.
That's over. And so what we're gonna move on to next is we're gonna give out some awards for not just the DCEU, not just our time covering DC for the past 5.5 years, but for DC history for the last quarter century, really from 2000 to now 2025, because it's a nice round number. We're at the quarter century mark for the century. Why not look back on the past 25 years of all of DC things that we've gotten, projects from live action films, animated films, television shows, and give out some awards
Mhm.
and acknowledge some of the things we really like, and again, still talk about some of the things that really did not work out so well for us. How was this exercise for you? How difficult was it for you to just walk down memory lane and again go past the DCEU and really think about,
Mhm.
like, 25 years of stories? It's a lot of time. It's a long time. I think we have like 11 or 12 categories here. What was this experience like for you to just recall some of these things?
It was hard, man. It really was. It was a again, no matter how we talk about, I think DC, a lot of moments have happened. A lot of things have happened, and all wasn't bad. A lot of the stuff, there was some things in there that were good. There were some things in there that were memorable. That again, you just kind of forget about because you maybe haven't seen something in a long time, or like you kind of go through the list of movies and be like, wait, this thing did happen in this property. I think I like that thing. Or man, I remember hating that thing over there. And you have to reminisce and bring up all the memories and feelings that you kind of first felt when you were watching some of these things, or at least the last time you watched some of these things, man. So it was really hard. They put out a lot of stuff, but it was fun nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a lot to choose from. It really is. It's kind of an embarrassment of riches in some respects. When you're looking at animation and television and
Hmm.
theatrical films, like, there's a lot to really remember, and characters and moments and things that brought smiles to faces, but also definitely killed dreams and made us very weary of what DC was going to look like for the next decade or so. But it was fun to kind of recall some of these things, whether they were good or bad, and kind of walk down memory lane. And so let's do this. Let's give out the first award, which is the second best DC movie of the last 25 years. Because, folks, let's be fucking honest. We all know
Yep.
what the first best DC movie of the last 25 years is. It's The Dark Knight. There's really no
Yep.
conversation. So why
Yes.
play that game? So we're gonna
Hmm.
highlight what we think is the second best DC movie of the last 25 years after Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. What'd you pick for this category?
It's funny because this might be very easy and basic, but I'm going with the Batman 2022, bro. I gotta go with the Batman. It's that good, bro. Matt Reeves, you already said it, one of the best working directors we have today, and also it's also one of my favorite episodes of our podcast. It's just like, again, we got on here, we nerded out. It was a good time. It was a good movie, man. And even add on to it in post, we got the Penguin because of this, and now that's only added to what this movie has brought us, man. And I think, I speak for everyone when I say the next film is one of the most anticipated superhero films in the next upcoming years. And so, yeah, it has to be. It's the second best for me, man. It really is.
That's the real answer.
That's the real answer.
For the sake of just like adding in something different,
Something else,
just giving out a different option, I'm gonna say Joker. I'm gonna say 2019's Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix, which led him to an Academy Award for Best Actor. It was a moment. It was a big moment, and I know the film is divisive, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but it also has a lot of support and a lot of lovers. And again, I said it earlier, it's not really a DC movie. It just so happens to have a DC character. That's a Todd Phillips Warner Brothers project. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna acknowledge it and praise it because I do love that movie quite a lot. Of course, he's ripping off Scorsese, he's ripping off Taxi Driver, but I think he did it pretty successfully with the comic book character that we all really, really adore and love, and gave us a different vision that we just hadn't saw before. And so I'm appreciative of that because I thought at that time that could have given us a really, really good proof of concept of just like what DC was capable of that Marvel was not capable of.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to continue because they put out a pretty shitty second movie, but it is what it is. We got that good first movie, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so I'll just throw that out there as just like another option. But yes, the real answer is, of course, Matt Reeves, the Batman movie. Let's move on. The best live action DC TV series. As we said earlier, not a ton of options per se. I mean, unless you want to throw in some of the Arrowverse stuff in here, but I'm just gonna go ahead and pick this one off of recency bias. It's the Penguin.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pick the Penguin. Love the Penguin. It was great. Those 8 episodes that they gave us were fantastic. Told us a different story that we couldn't really anticipated, and they put Colin Farrell through the ringer so much so that he doesn't even want to play the character anymore. He's gonna go do Sergeant Rock now. He's like, you know what? No, fuck that Penguin stuff. That makeup is done. I'm not doing it. But he did such a tremendous job. It led him to winning awards. He just won the Screen Actors Guild Award, I believe he won. I think he won a Golden Globe as well. Like, it was great stuff. It was just a great departure from what we're used to. It felt like that DC TV should have been that for just like the past 5 years. Like, why weren't we making more just HBO shows with DC characters? I thought Watchmen was going to lead us to that, and we never really got anything else outside of the Penguin, but I'm glad we did get it nonetheless.
Yeah, man, that's just a cool concept. Like, make it an HBO show, but then make it DC. You know what I'm saying? That really is what we got. HBO, they can cook them. We know they can cook them. So let's just add a DC spin, and I think the shows definitely would have been successful had they taken that approach from the get go, or like you said, for the past 5 years. I'm gonna go in. You did the recency bias. I'm gonna go hella old bias, barely making the 25-year mark bias, and I'm gonna pick Smallville, bro. I'm gonna pick Smallville.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Debuted in what, 2001? Like right after?
I think. Yeah, bro. Nice. It's just an amazing show. Tom Welling honestly was my live action Superman for so long, right? Until like Henry Cavill comes along. That's my Superman in my head. The show was on for like 15 years or something ridiculous. It's I can't even. Yeah, it's just crazy to know that a Superman show was on TV for that long. And then Michael Rosenbaum as Lex was just like crazy in that. Just a really good overall show. Again, potentially a catalyst for a lot of the stuff we do get with like Arrowverse and thereon. I don't know if we would be here, honestly, without Smallville, man. So I'm going to go with Smallville.
Oh, yeah. The Smallville was the blueprint for the Arrowverse. That was the playbook. They took that playbook and ran it. They said, yeah, the guys, these shows are going to be here for a decade. You're going to be here. You're going to come back. We're going to make sure that this becomes a mainstay and a pillar, so much so that they built out their own little cinematic universe on television. And so, Smallville really did kick off a new era of DC TV. I mean, I think there were DC shows before Smallville. Some were successful, some were not, but a lot of them were based on Superman for the most part. There was Lois and Clark, and there was like the 50s Superman show. You had the Batman show in the 60s, of course, but Superman was like consistently churning them out. Wonder Woman, of course. That Superman Smallville show was really kind of the new ushering in the new era for what I think, set the
Yeah, and he was
pavement
from
for.
Kansas. That was lit for me.
That's
I'm
right.
from Kansas.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is really cool. You know what I'm saying? So I related. I related. I was like, oh yeah,
Absolutely.
cool.
That's a good point. Okay. That's a good pick. Good pick. Let's move on. Next category is best DCEU hero. So looking at this category
Mm-hmm.
specifically within the DC extended universe from Man of Steel to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, who's the best hero? Who's the best heroic character that we've gotten? Who did you pick for this category?
I went really basic here, and I just went with Superman, man. I went with Henry Cavill Superman. He felt like the glue to the DCU. Like every movie was in the back of your head, either Superman was in it, or you're like, "Where's Superman?" Or you're like, Superman always just felt like the center piece. But also, not only that, but again, that casting, Henry Cavill was just like, you're him. Like you look like him, you're built like him, like you're Superman, bro. Like it really felt like that, and it also felt like they gave him a lot of the meat and potatoes of what again, I think what Zack Snyder was trying to do, man. So I went basically with Henry Cavill Superman here.
It's a shame how they treated my boy, man. They
I
they
know.
they
I
toyed with
know.
him. It was a terrible breakup. Really toxic relationship there. But he was the glue. He was the one that set it all in motion. I mean, when they made Man of Steel, there was no idea to make a cinematic universe, but the movie did well enough that they were like, yeah, let's
Yep.
build
Here you
it
go.
off of what he did, and he was a very very integral piece in all of those stories. I picked a somewhat, I guess, unconventional because
Mm-hmm.
hero, loosely we can call them a hero, but they're
Uh-oh.
really more of an anti-hero if we're being honest.
Uh-huh.
I'm picking Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn.
Yep. I love it. I
Harley
love it.
Quinn, in terms of consistency and performance and enjoyment and just nailing the character,
Mm-hmm.
Margot Robbie fucking did it. I loved what she did with Harley Quinn. I mean, she was in some not so great movies. That first Suicide Squad movie, Birds
Yeah.
of Prey, not a huge fan of it, but she was always fantastic. And then finally,
Cooked.
James Gunn got her hands on her, and she was wonderful in the Suicide Squad. And I'm just like, yes, like every time she's stepping up to bat, Margot Robbie is just knocking it out of the park. It's probably unlikely that she'll come back at this point. I mean, she's gotten so big and
Sad.
so popular, and
Yeah.
she's doing other things. I mean, like her and Greta are gonna just be in bed with each other for like the next 25 years, I bet. But those 3 movies that we got her in, she was fantastic. So I really really loved her. Best DCEU villain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Slim pickings here, if we're being honest.
Slim Pickens.
I don't think that this is a great pool of candidates, and so I guess similar to your quote unquote basic pick, I got to be basic too. Best DCU villain, I'm just gonna say General Zod, played by
Yeah.
Michael Shannon. I mean,
Yeah.
he was great. He was a great Zod. I mean, he was a great
Mm-hmm.
formidable foe for Henry Cavill Superman in that first movie. He was around a lot. He was a part of the subplot in Batman v Superman. We saw him come back for the Flash. Should he have done more? Yes, it would have been nice to see him do more. But Michael Shannon, he's a really really terrific talent and did a lot with that character, and I think made Zod more menacing than we had ever really seen him in that particular sort of form and fashion. And so that's my pick. But again, this is not necessarily the greatest category to choose from. But I think Zod was a pretty good villain overall.
No, he was, man. He was again. He he came in and Superman didn't know what to do. It was it was one of those like, man, you get what you get from Zod, and I think like you said, Michael Shannon, he did such a good job. It's such a good job they had to bring him back in the Flash. You know what I'm saying? They were like, we need to use this guy again. So yeah, a really good pick. My pick is ain't gonna make no sense, but like you said, it's Slim Pickens. I'm gonna pick Steppenwolf from Justice League, specifically Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, please point that out. That's
Yeah,
a specific
very
reference.
specific. Yeah, because we don't talk about Steppenwolf in the other one, but he was way more fleshed out in Zack Snyder's. And honestly, I just like the way he looked. I was like, dang, this dude looks really. They
Badass.
killed the CGI.
Yeah.
They murdered the CGI on Steppenwolf, man. I was like, this dude looks really good. You understood what he was trying to do. The whole scene with him and Themyscira was fire. I just thought they did a really good job with Steppenwolf, particularly in the Zack Snyder one, man. So that's my pick.
That's a good one. I thought about Steppenwolf quite a lot just because Zack Snyder repaired that character very, very significantly in his cut of the film, because in the original Justice League, it was like, okay, this is sleepy time. This is a really terrible villain. But yeah, he gave him a lot of backstory, a lot of development in his version. And so, yeah, I really appreciated him. Next category, favorite moment from a DC film. This is any DC film, one singular moment that stands head and shoulders above the rest. What did you pick as your favorite moment from any DC film that we've gotten in the last 25 years?
Bro, this was so hard for me. Uh, I have like there's like a top three, but I'm gonna go with the one for me, and it's just a moment I think we all can agree on was like, whoa, this is cinema, and it's literally the interrogation scene from Dark Knight, bro. With Joker and Batman, it's just. It's you just didn't it's just a different kind of movie, bro. You just didn't see it coming. I don't know, it's just one of those, oh, this is what we're doing. And up until that point, the movie had been already so good. You're like, oh, what else can they do? Oh, they put Batman and Joker in a room together while he's interrogating them. Joker's makeup is half off, he's beating them. It's just one of those moments, man, that I have to love. I really do. So that's the moment I picked.
Capital A acting in that fucking scene. It was unbelievable. That's a moment where you just feel like something important is happening on the screen right now. Like this is different. Like you said, it's unlike anything we had ever seen. Ironically enough, my favorite moment from a DC film is the moment in The Dark Knight that happens right before the interrogation scene, and that's the truck flip from
oh my god, so
the chase scene in The Dark Knight. I'll never forget watching this whole sequence unfold in a movie theater, opening night, 2008. You see that whole chase sequence. You see the Batmobile get destroyed and it turn into the Batpod, and he's chasing Joker, and Joker has a rocket launcher, and he has Harvey Dent in the SWAT car, and they're going through downtown Chicago, just weaving in and out of these buildings. And then they have that showdown on that main street in Chicago, and you see Joker and you see Batman coming at it full
in the middle
force,
of that street, boy,
like a fucking like the fucking Good and the Bad and the Ugly, like a Sergio Leone Western. You know, these two titanic characters coming to blows, and Batman just outsmarts him, weaves between the truck, and that truck flip scene, which is all practical, all real. I just the hair on my fucking arm stood up in the theater. I was like, oh my god, this is what it feels like to feel alive in a movie. It just it changed me. It just changed me, and I'll never forget. That was The Dark Knight was the first Blu-ray that I had ever purchased. I can't tell you how many times I watched that fucking scene.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I still have the same one that I purchased back then.
Oh yeah,
it's still over here and somewhere over here,
still on the shelf. And I watched that scene endlessly. I watched the behind the scenes. I was fascinated by it because I just never saw anything like it. And every time I go to a movie, I try to look for something that can capture that feeling again. It rarely happens.
It's hard.
It's very rare. It's usually Nolan who's the only one that can get close to it.
True.
So that was just a hell of a moment in that film. So that would be my
favorite. Got my follow-ups are, like 2 and 3. Man of Steel, First Flight.
Oh, that was good.
Oh my god.
Coming out of the fortress and doing the whole
fortress, and he didn't really know how to fly yet, and he was just jumping. And then when he finally is flying, it's the look on his face where like it's like a kid doing something, like eating candy for the first time. He's like, oh my god, I think I'm finna fly. And then No Man's Land, Wonder Woman, bro. That was just like, y'all cooking. Had to throw some honorable mentions in there.
Another incredible one. I will point out one more, and that was the reveal of the Batmobile in Matt Reeves' The Batman. When you first see the Batmobile in that fucking alleyway, and they go on that chase with the Penguin.
Like, where's he going?
Oh my god! Yeah, he just runs off.
Going? He just runs off. I was like,
the fuck, Pattinson? You're running from a fight, and no, he's going to get that hammer, that Batmobile, and he just winds it up, and you hear the roar of the engine. It was incredibly filmed moment. Moving on. Next category is the biggest what the fuck moment in DC over the past 25 years. And now when we say biggest what the fuck moment, we're specifically looking at moments within the films themselves. And so we're talking about moments that happen within a movie specifically that just made us go, what the fuck was going on there? It can be confusion, it can be anger, disgust, like whatever we interpret, the biggest WTF moment, that's what we're going to go with here. And what I'm picking in this category is the fight between Superman and Zod at the end of Man of Steel, where they fucking level Metropolis.
They killed it.
Yo, it was just like, wait a second. Y'all are murdering thousands of people right now with this fight that you're having. Visually, did it look spectacular? Absolutely. I remember watching that fight in the movie theater and thinking like, oh my God, this is what a comic book fight should look like on the big screen. It felt like Zack Snyder was channeling a little bit of video game energy, a little bit of Dragon Ball energy. It's like, oh, he figured it out. He got it. He got the flight mechanics correct and everything. and then you just see them just destroy Metropolis, and it was like, wow, okay. And it really kind of changed the course of not only their movies but also like other movies that were being made, because we saw a lot of these superhero movies basically start to deal with the idea of like, what does collateral damage look like when these
Mm-hmm.
superheroes are fighting in the cities. And there's that meme out there where it's like the Avengers saved the city and then the city is nothing but fucking rubble, right? And so
Yeah.
every movie started to interrogate that, so much so that I kind of became annoyed by it, because now every fight takes
Mm-hmm.
place on a remote planet where there's no
Yeah.
civilization at all. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, guys. Now, I kind of missed the era of where if a hero's fighting a villain, not only do they have to fight them and overcome that villain, but they have to protect the people around them, right? They have to
Right.
save people and stop buildings from collapsing and making sure that the child doesn't get run over by something. You know, that
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was always an important part of superhero films, but we've kind of lost that because Zack Snyder went way fucking overboard in this moment in Man of Steel. He just took it way too far. So now we can't really ever go back, because he showed us what a post apocalyptic world would look like if two Kryptonians fought on Earth. So that would be my pick.
Mm. You know, that's honestly what makes Invincible so good is they always got to deal with what happened to the Earth, what happened to
That's
these
a part
people
of the
over here,
story.
what happened to it's literally part of. That's why Mark is so guilty all the time. It's like, damn, like of course I had to try to save him, but all these people died in the process. But yeah, that Zod scene is insane, bro. They really level Metropolis. It's crazy. It really is crazy to think about. My biggest what the fuck moment is honestly just one of my least favorite moments in all of the DCEU. It is Batman versus Superman Martha, bro. When he says, "How do you know that name?" It actually it actually pissed me off. It actually made me upset. And this is honestly also really close to watching the Batman versus Superman trailer and them showing Doomsday in the trailer. That also was a pretty what the fuck moment for me. But like they're kind of tied together. Of like, okay, now what are we doing? Like, what's going on here? Because I feel like we could have just found better motivations. We could have found better. Do anything else? How do you know that name? I don't. Your moms have the same name all of a sudden now. It's just like this is how they make up. I was really mad at that moment, man. I just expected, I think, something else, something a little bit deeper, or just not that. It made me roll my eyes so heavy. But yeah, it's definitely one of my biggest what the fuck moments for sure.
It was bad. It was really, really bad. I just remember seeing that, and I went with some friends, and I remember just like looking down the aisle like, just happened. Did they really just try to like insinuate that
You
this is what gets them to join together? Oh, it
know, get
was.
some.
Ooh, what an eye roll. Yeah, that's a huge what the fuck moment for sure. Next category, best DC animated movie. As we pointed out, they put out a ton of these. They put
Yeah.
out a couple theatrically, or maybe just one theatrically, but most of these have been home video releases that they put out over the past 25 years. A couple of
Hmm.
different universes. They have the Tomorrowverse, which is running now, but they've also done like some standalone one-off stuff as well over the course of the time of Warner Brothers Animation producing a lot of these. I know we were super excited. It was like what, 2018. They put out that big 30 film box set of all the DC animated movies that had come out until that point in time.
Hmm.
It was like 30 films over the course of 10 years. So they churn them out. It's a lot to pick from. So what would you pick in this category? Best DC animated movie of the last 25 years.
Man, this was hard because they were cooking. But I went with, I think the obvious for me is Justice League, Flashpoint Paradox, man.
It's a good one. Yeah.
They cooked. They cooked because it was so unique, and of course it was so dark. And there was all these alternate versions of just the characters that we love. Not only that, but they did such a good job of setting up what was next. It was both a perfect ending in the beginning to what was happening. I was like, that's how you do it. That's how you do a Flash point paradox. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. They really cook with it, man. I think it might be possibly best DC anime movie of all time, if not top two, if not two, if not
Yeah.
number one. I mean,
No,
yeah, it
certainly.
was like that.
It was strong. I strongly consider picking it. This movie came out, I think it was 2013. I was in college. I bought this Blu-ray and watched this movie so many times and just like gathered my friends around. I'm like, y'all gotta watch this. Like, this is changing the course of like what we know. Like, if they
Mm-hmm.
can take this, because what I thought, like, they're doing these as like proof of concepts for potential live action movies. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was the play that they were gonna run. So I'm like, guys, you should watch this because they might make this a movie, one
Yeah.
day. Little did I know it would take basically 10 years to get that movie, and that movie underperformed and nobody saw it, but it was what it was. But when this came out, the Flashpoint Paradox, and like you said, it set up that universe of stories that they were telling and how they were interconnecting all their different animated films. It was great. It was great. And you got to see those dark versions. I love that movie. Again, for the sake of being different, I'm gonna pick something just a little bit different, but I think still up there, probably in the conversation is top 2 or 3. The Lego Batman movie. Just love that. Just to love the Lego Batman movie. I think the one and only animated movie that they put out that did come out in theaters over the past 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. It was just a treat. It was so fun. It was just completely self-referential, all the way meta. You know, before that became lazy and just, you know, the very regular thing that we just kind of see in almost everything now. It was still coming at a time where it's like, oh my God, they're acknowledging our fandom. They're acknowledging the history, the good and the bad history of the Batman character, because we know that there's been ups and downs, and I thought that this movie did it in a really, really clever way. Great writing, funny, humorous moments, and tying in other Warner Brothers properties. It wasn't just about Batman. Like, there's a whole scene, Voldemort shows up. Like, it gets crazy at the end of that movie. So it was a really, really fun time. I have fond memories of the Lego Batman movie for sure.
Good movie. Really good movie, man.
Moving on, best DC animated TV series to stick within the animated realm. A lot of options here. They also, in addition to their movies, they put out a lot of animated TV shows. We have sung the praises of a number of them over the past few years on this podcast. But speaking about 25 years, long time, the one that I'm picking is Justice League Unlimited, specifically.
As you shall.
Unlimited is landmark television for a young me. I love a lot of their shows, but Unlimited showed you just like what's capable when you take not your primary heroes, but you take your secondary and your tertiary and your D-list characters and like give them a spotlight, give them time to shine, like show people the depth and the breadth of the true DC universe and the bench of what you have at your disposal, and still tell one story that coalesces into a finale like that. They did it so successfully in that show. And again, you know, thinking about the movies, I thought about the TV shows in the same way. Like, if they could replicate this in live action, we're going to be in a good place. Like, there's a whole arc of Booster Gold in this show that I was like, yo, this makes me a Booster Gold fan, you know? It's just stuff like that they were doing, just the experimentation of Justice League Unlimited. That's why I loved it so much. And so a lot of great memories, a lot of memeable moments. It might be the most memed DC TV show in terms of animation. It's a lot of memes that have come out, like a lot of weird interactions between Batman and Wonder Woman. Like, she's trying to fuck him, and he's just like
all the time.
Get away from me. It's like, I don't have time for that. Like, that all comes from Unlimited. It's like, it gave us so many moments. So I love that show, and I'm probably due for a rewatch soon because it's been a few years since I've seen it.
Unlimited is also funny because, like you said, a lot of the interactions with Batman are so funny. It's like one of those second realizations that like Batman has the most plot armor out of like all the heroes. It's just like, why are you like this? Like, and how are you like this? And the funniest meme to always come out of it is like how everyone was like, let's go to the next part, and Batman got to walk or call his plane, or like he always got to find a different mode of transportation where everyone just like flies away or disappears. It's the funniest thing ever, bro. Just League Unlimited is so good, man. And honestly, it's the right answer, but I have another answer that I can't not say it, bro. And my answer is Teen Titans. Teen Titans,
man.
Oh my God. So before my love for Avatar, that showed me a cartoon can have story arcs and be in order and all of these things. Teen Titans also did that. Teen Titans showed me like, you can watch this cartoon with these beloved comic book characters, and look, some shit's gonna happen. The Robin you know and love might turn into somebody else. The Raven you know and love got a crazy backstory. Everybody was going through something in Teen Titans, man, and it was just so good. And the theme songs is iconic, and it's just one of those shows. I think that, I mean, it's so good they had to make Teen Titans Go, which is also successful. So it's just Teen Titans, bro. It was one of those. Fuck Sarah, by the way.
Exactly, yeah.
Fuck Sarah.
Yeah. Teen Titans. No, that's a really, really good show. I love Teen Titans. Yeah, that was just one of those comfort watches too. Like, you grow up and you just like, I can't wait for that new episode to drop. And yeah, now Teen Titans Go is like the spiritual follow up. It has like 400 episodes. Like, it's
crazy.
They just keep like pumping them minutes. Out. Yeah, like 10 minutes, like small short segments, but it's like a really fun thing. Yeah, I think we still have yet to unlock the full potential of what Teen Titans can truly be. There's rumors of a movie coming. We'll see. Hopefully they can get that right. Next category. This should be interesting. is DC's biggest public blunder. So this category is
Oof.
specifically about something that didn't happen within a movie or within a TV show, but specifically that happened behind the scenes, an industry
Mhm.
story, a Hollywood story that just really made us look at DC and perhaps even Warner Brothers and say, yo, what were y'all thinking? How did this happen? Why did this happen? What went down here? Unfortunately, this is not slim pickings. There's actually a lot to choose from when you talk about
Mhm.
public blunders because there's been so
Mhm.
much controversy, specifically around the DCEU for the past 10 years or so. There's just been a lot of mishaps and a lot of things that did not go right. And so, not necessarily the greatest things to remember, but it's important a part of their history. It did shape
It
how
is.
things ultimately panned out for them. So, what would you pick as your biggest DC public blunder of the past 25 years?
I have to go with the cancellation of Batgirl, man. I
Mm,
do. I do. It
big
is
black
just
eye on their legacy for sure.
whoa. Like and you talked about earlier, there's a lot of movies that I get greenlit potentially and then they get canceled or like shoot, we've even heard of movies that have been made and we've never, I guess, kind of seen them or something else happened to them. But Batgirl was like we were following along the whole time. And you're probably right. This is probably because social media too. Like we're seeing leaks, we're seeing everything we need to see about Batgirl. We're hearing about the test footage. We're seeing reactions to the film, all these things that they're doing, and they're like, "Yeah, you'll never see this movie." It's the what? We're never see like ever. Like it's it's not like the Acme movie you're just talking about where like it's gonna get sold to somebody else and somebody else gonna just it's like no, you will never see this film even though it was damn near finished, incomplete. You'll never see it. It's just man, it's just one of those things honestly still can't believe happened because we were so close to getting it. And part of me is like, even if it was bad, I wanted to see it. Like, let me let me watch the movie.
Yeah.
But we'll never get to see it, man. It's pretty up there for me as the worst blunder for sure.
Before this even I didn't even know that they could do this. Like a
It's
reality didn't
crazy.
exist where we would film a movie and it just wouldn't come out. It's like, wait,
Mhm.
that's possible? And when they did
Mhm.
that, I was like, I didn't even know you could do this. Is this not illegal? Like you have to distribute the movie? It was crazy. I had a hard time accepting it. But yeah, that's a big one. That was kind of like I think a true defining moment where it's like, guys, we've lost here. This is over. This is like a true L just all around if we're canceling movies that have been filmed. But I'm gonna pick something different because I
Mhm.
think that this changed everything for DC. And I think
Mhm.
that their biggest public blunder of the past 25 years is the entire production and rollout of Justice League.
Damn.
That was an abomination all across the board. I mean, everything damn near that happened with that movie was just the wrong way to do it. From Zack Snyder
Mhm.
stepping away, unfortunately, due to a family tragedy, they bring in Joss Whedon because they're trying to replicate the success that he achieved with the Avengers movies, which does not fit the tone of these DC characters. The Warner Brothers CEO at the time, Kevin Sujihara, mandated that the movie had to be under 2 hours long. If you go look at the runtime of that original Justice League movie, it's an hour and 59 minutes. It's a slap in the face. Chris
What are we talking
Terrio, the
about?
writer, he tried to get his name removed from the film because he was so ashamed of the script and how it turned out. But they wouldn't even do that. They wouldn't honor his wishes. The fucking mustache gate with Henry Cavill.
Oh my god, I forgot about that, Jesus.
Oh yes, we should forget about it. Bury it
Oh my
deep in the
god.
recesses of your memory. That was a whole thing.
Oh my god.
I saw that movie on a huge IMAX screen. You know the screen, AMC
Mhm.
Lincoln Square. You couldn't miss it. This guy's mustache had to be CGI'd off his face because, yeah, they had to do reshoots and they tried to negotiate with Paramount because he was filming at the time the Mission Impossible movie. Hey, can he shave his mustache for a couple of weeks? And Paramount said, fuck you. We're not going to fucking delay our production. You better CGI that shit off because if he
Oh
shaves it, he has
man.
to regrow it for. No, we're not doing that. And so that was terrible. And then just the ugly stuff that happened with Ray Fisher and the claims he made against Joss Whedon and Kevin
Mhm.
Sujihara, that whole social media stuff, which just got really dirty and ugly. I mean, I don't know if we have heard so much dirty laundry come out from a single movie ever. There was
Yeah.
just like story after story after story about this movie. Not only that, it comes out, it's one of the most expensive movies ever made. It's like almost
Yep.
$400 million, and it bombed based on that budget. It made $655 million at the box office. What world does it exist where the Justice League is not $1 billion film? How does that make sense?
Doesn't
But
make sense.
they had done so much damage to their reputation, to people's trust, and just to the success of their franchise that people said, I don't care. I don't care about a Justice League movie. And it's not great. It's a terrible film. That is a 1-star movie. Like, what the fuck? It was
So
so
bad.
bad. It was so bad. That whole thing was just handled terribly. I think every studio should take notes and use that as a case study. This is the way not to do it. Don't ever do that shit again. Like, we cannot have that happen. It was I think it's the biggest black eye that they've ever had, because I don't think they've ever truly recovered from that. I really don't. I think it's really set them up for just a lot of failure for what they've gone through over the past 7 or 8 years since the release of that movie.
It's insane, bro. Like, how does like how doesn't your Justice League movie the most, it should make the most money? It doesn't make any, all roles should be leading to Justice League. Like, that is what we're here for. Like, imagine the first Avenger made more than Avengers. That's not how that's supposed to go. You know what I'm saying? That's not at all how that's supposed to go, man. And to speak a little about the quality of the movie, another one of my things that pet peeve me is how fast we got to the death of Superman.
Good
like
grief.
That's what we're already.
Yeah, but the second movie he's dead, and so now we have to resurrect him in the third movie. Like, what are we doing?
Already on the death of Superman? Crazy, insane. Just like, what? Yeah, bro.
That's the problem, like Batman v Superman leading the Justice League. They they were trying to adapt like 4 different comic arcs, like major arcs, into one story.
Huge.
It's like, what are we like? These are all individual movies that should they should take 3 years to get to. Like, what are we doing here? So it was really terrible. Outside of the 2 we mentioned, just one other one I just want to mention. We briefly touched on it earlier. Just the debacle with Henry Cavill and Superman and coming back, the Black Adam shit, like him kind of coming back and not coming back, and then all of a sudden James Gunn come in and he's like, wait just a second, my guy, no, you're done, you're sitting down permanently. Just so embarrassing, just so bad for him to come out and be in the movie and announce it on social media like, I'm back. You fucking thought you were not back. You were very not back, sir. James Gunn had such different plans. That was just terrible. An actor should never have to go through that,
ever.
That was
ever.
Really bad.
And then they even threw in Gal Gadot and whatchamacallit, and what's that movie?
The Flash.
Shazam. Shazam.
She wasn't. Well, she was in Shazam and the Flash. She was in both of those. Remember?
She was in both.
Yeah.
Oh my brother.
Just shoehorning any actor that's available, because
throw him in there.
Just throw him in, because look, Gal Gadot's not making any other movies outside of Wonder Woman, so she's available, and so she just pops her into a Shazam movie randomly, pop her into the Flash movie randomly, just like just handled really, really bad. So yeah, not great stuff. Last 2 categories. The next one up is, where are we at? Oh, I just lost my thought. Here we go.
Canceled movie.
The canceled movie that we most wanted to see. So this would be a project that unfortunately got nixed, was announced at some point, either by them officially or by, maybe an insider or a trade, but ultimately did not pan out and make its way to theaters. For this one, I'm choosing the New Gods movie.
Yeah,
I'm choosing the New Gods movie.
Good pick.
Now, I will say this. So Ava DuVernay was supposed to direct it. I don't know if I really wanted Ava DuVernay's New Gods movie, if I'm being honest. Like, in hindsight, at the time I was excited about it, but thinking about Ava as a filmmaker, I love her and I'm sad for anything she puts out, and she moves me emotionally in ways that most filmmakers cannot. I just don't know if this is her bread and butter. Like, we've seen her, she's really ambitious, but we've seen her deal with IP, and I'm not saying that she can't do it, but after the Wrinkle in Time, just not good. She's really great at personal stories that mean something. I don't know if she would have been the right filmmaker, but just the concept of New Gods, that would have been something totally different than anything, like different than DC stuff, different than Marvel stuff. Just great characters, great opportunities. I got that huge Fourth World omnibus that came out a few years ago, and I just like devoured it and read through all those stories, and I was just like, oh, this would make a great series on its own. Like, give me 5 New Gods movies just telling this family story, this royal story, like Game of Thrones in the cosmos. It would have been, I think it would have been a really cool opportunity, but yeah, didn't get it. Probably won't ever get it. It's unfortunate.
Bruh, this is Jack Kirby we're talking about here. Like, Jack Kirby's New Gods? Oh my goodness. There's
specifically Jack Kirby, the king.
There's just so much potential in that property, man. And it's something so different than anything we had ever seen up until that point. Like, this, of course we have been playing with all the characters we know and love. New Gods was going to be something new, something fresh, a lot of characters people never heard of before. Like, I was just so, it just felt good. It's like, yeah, let's do that. Especially you know, again, Zack Snyder didn't really get a chance, but when you see like kind of the depiction of Darkseid and Steppenwolf and Granny Goodness and what like
Right.
kind of that realm looks like, you're
What
like,
that could
huh,
have been.
what that
Yeah.
could have looked like. It's like, huh, there's some interesting stuff that could happen over there. It's just,
Mhm.
but we'll never get it. It really is disappointing. I can't lie. It's like, dang, the New Gods almost happened, man. My pick here, I'm going to do Guillermo del Toro's Justice League
Oh,
Dark.
yep. Justice League Dark. Whew.
Because
That
if
did
you
get that
just
did get canceled. That's right.
Guillermo's Justice League Dark was finna be a thing. And I remember, I think somebody brought this up on Reddit like years ago. They were like, is it possible that this could still be a thing? And I'm over here like, it's technically not off the table. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, I mean, at any point, Guillermo could talk to James Gunn and be like, hey, you want to make this movie? But the concept of what Guillermo can bring to something like that, the way he makes and builds creatures into a Justice League Dark film, come on, bro. It's easy peasy to me. I think it's like a good movie that just hasn't been made yet. Honestly, if you ask me, it's just what are we doing? So yeah, bro, that's my pick, man. I think he
Yeah.
could have cooked.
No, you're right. Justice League Dark should be like a priority really soon here. I just think that
Yeah.
the potential for what you can do with that can just be like really, really cool. And again, just different
Mhm.
stuff that we haven't seen. Taking a big brand name, but obviously the spin and the twist that you can add on to it just opens up a lot of possibilities. And so yeah, GDT, like making that movie, that would have been something, man. I mean, has any other director circled as many comic book projects that just didn't get made as he has? Because I think there was a number of
True.
things he was supposed to direct that he ultimately
Mhm.
it just didn't work out for whatever reason. And it's unfortunate because him being such a visionary filmmaker. I mean, we saw what he did with the Hellboy franchise and
Yeah.
what he did with Blade
Mhm.
2, which was great
Mhm.
stuff. We know he would come to it with a lot of love and passion and really make something
Yeah,
different.
it's gonna look good. He's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I know it's going. He has a style in his mind. It just would have been fire, man. It really would have. I have a number two spot. Well, technically, New Gods is probably like New Gods is just like
Sure.
it's so up there for me. But Green Lantern Corps.
As a
Come on,
movie,
what were
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
bro?
Mhm.
What were we doing? What were we
Yeah.
doing? Why Green Lantern Corps? I don't even understand how we're making a Justice League movie without Green Lantern. That's my other. I have so many gripes with the Justice League. It's kind of insane. I honestly don't even know how the movie was made, but Green Lantern wasn't even in the
Nope.
whatever, bro.
Not at
Whatever.
all. Just
If
not
they
even
say so.
barely
What
hinted
are we?
at, not even a part of the plan or it just
No.
didn't make any sense. It just like what are we doing here? And it's, even with Zach's version, they allude to it and they're out there, but it's like, guy, that they these
Mhm.
characters should be in this stuff. Like that's just Green Lantern is one of those original members. You don't assemble this team without that guy. There's just a big pocket of the universe. Thankfully, this show is at least, going to be a thing. We're going to get to that in a second. Last category here, Dream DC feature film. So this is
Mhm.
just open for interpretation, anything on the table. The movie that we just want to see made the most in this, in this next, I guess, decade plus of what James Gunn is going to be doing and what he's ultimately
Mhm.
going to be leading towards. So if you had to pick one movie, one property, one project that you most want to see out of them all, what would your dream DC feature film be?
Honestly, anything milestone adjacent. Give me static first and foremost, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy that Miles is on the pedestal he's on right now. And we never got static to have the same opportunity. It's kind of insane. But static, Icon and Rocket, Blood Syndicate. One of those three, make it shoot it into my veins. It's probably going to be fire. Like, they're just really good, thought out black characters. We haven't seen them. We know people have ideas for them. It just hasn't happened. But I know they would go a long way and reach a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? So definitely anything milestone movie or milestone comic adjacent, man. I got to go with those.
No, that's great. I mean, because also with the development of these movies, like the place that we're at now, we've gotten so many comic book films. We've gotten a ton of
Mm-hmm.
them. You either have to go with heavy hitters that are just like your surefire bets, your
Mm-hmm.
Supermans, and Batmans, and Spider-Mans, like the things that are going to do well. Or if you're going to do something different that's maybe largely unknown, I mean, it just has to be so unique and different. Like I, I hate to compare it because this is like an impossible comparison, but like a Black
Yeah.
Panther. Black Panther like
Yeah.
changed perception of what we could do with the stories.
Absolutely.
You need something that can do that. And Milestone has that stuff. Milestone has a lot of those types of stories and those
Mm-hmm.
characters where it's like, oh yeah, this is nothing like all the other stuff that's being produced right now. It's just like really interesting, engaging personal stories that can be told on somewhat of a smaller scale without sacrificing just like the importance of the stakes and the enormity of like the characters and what they really mean to people. Like you can do good stuff. And so yeah, I hope that I hope they lean into this stuff because it's just like it's untapped potential that they have there with the milestone stuff. The pick I'm gonna choose here, it's basic, but they just have to do it because like we still haven't properly gotten just like the true culmination of anything with this stuff. And I'm just gonna say Kingdom Come. Like
Mm.
Kingdom Come, I think, would be the perfect way to culminate a lot of the build that you have to do in order to get this crossover big mega epic event. That's one of their most beloved crossover events that they've had.
Yeah.
Now I will
Hmm.
say there's some multiverse shenanigans in it that, you know, at this point
Yeah, there is.
we're kind of sick of that shit. It's like,
Hmm.
I don't want to really deal with multiverse, but I think if you do it right, I think if you go into the right aspects of it, it can still be successful. We're dealing with different generations, dark
Hmm.
sides of characters that can really be unpacked and explored, them
Yeah.
facing off against each other. And we're talking like dozens and dozens of characters within the DC universe, like that
Yeah.
huge epic thing. But, Kingdom Come, that's a 10-year project, right? You can't you
Easy.
can't you can't do
Yeah.
that tomorrow. You can't greenlight that movie immediately. And so in wishing for this, I'm wishing that they can build a successful arc of multiple movies that can lead to this
Hmm.
culminating event. That's really what I
Hmm.
want because properly with DC we haven't gotten that yet. Justice League was like their third fucking movie. They're like, oh yeah, just do Justice League. It's the third movie. Fuck all the other shit. It'll come later. Just do Justice League now. It's just like, no, guys, you're missing the point. Like that's not what you do. So I need them to put in the work, build, grow the anticipation, and then give
Yeah.
us the thing that pays it all off with the Kingdom Come movie.
And the villain Magog, I think,
Yeah,
man, a decent villain too. And like you said, Kingdom Come is tight, man. There's a lot of moving parts in Kingdom Come, and it would be fire. But yeah, absolutely. And even just thinking about that in the back of my head, part of part of me also when I think of dream DC feature film is just like we have yet to go through the roast gallery properly for like
no,
we seen Dark Side, but we ain't really get Dark Side. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't live action Brainiac needs to go crazy. Like there's
God.
just a lot of DC villains that we haven't really captured yet. It's so interesting because Marvel kind of we haven't gone through all of them either. But like it's just a thing that always remains on the docket. Like, how are we going to do this villain? Are we going to do it well? All of it. Like, where is it going to come from? And so yeah, man, it's just that's Kingdom Come is tight because we get a look at a different villain, and yeah, being able to do it right would mean everything. People don't even know who Magog is,
Right.
but hey,
Yeah. Yeah. You can make them
fire.
a big deal
You can
if you
make
do it
them
right.
good. Yeah,
So
Magog's good. Yeah.
So that'll conclude that exercise. All of our awards for DC for the past 25 years. Folks, let us know what you think. Let us know what you would pick in some of these categories. What would your favorite DC movie be, or your second favorite, or the best live action series, or what do you think was kind of their biggest misstep in this whole big grand experiment they've done? Just hit us up and let us know what you think about that stuff. Moving on here as we start to enter into the last portion of this podcast and thinking about DC, it's time to look to the future. We've done a lot of reminiscing, a lot of reflection. It's time to think about what's next and what's on the horizon. And a few weeks ago, James Gunn and Peter Safran organized a press event at Warner Brothers at their studio in Burbank, and they invited press to come in and basically get updates about the docket of DC projects that they announced 2 years ago when James Gunn and Peter Safran first took over, and they did that big announcement a couple of years ago and gave us the whole outline of what this whole thing was going to be, launching with Superman, then of course coming out with additional stories like Supergirl and potentially Sergeant Rock and Swamp Thing, sort of this
Mhm.
gods and monsters chapter, which to be honest, I don't even know if that's a thing anymore at this point, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But they
Mhm.
did give some updates on a lot of these things that are coming out. So I just want to go through them one by one and just kind of get a temperature check on their comments and what they said, and how they contrast possibly with what we may have thought and what they said a couple of years ago, and then just ultimately how we're feeling about what it might mean for the future of their lineup of films that'll be coming out. Superman, I mean, we'll talk about that in depth in a second here, but they obviously mentioned it's currently in editing right now.
Mhm.
Gunn has called the cast, quote, maybe the best cast I've ever worked with, including David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, Eddie Gathegi, and Nathan Fillion. We
Mhm.
know James Gunn is great for his casts. What do you think about specifically when you hear that? I mean, we'll talk a lot about Superman, but when you see that, I mean, he's worked with some great cast. If it's one thing he knows how to do is bring together some
Yeah.
people and get you to love them. So what do you react and think about when you hear that statement from him?
Part of me feels like it's just a thing he has to say. Like
Good press,
every
right? Yeah.
every next movie is gonna be the best cast that he's
Yeah.
ever worked with. Cause come on, man. He, like you said, he's had some bangers between Guardians and Suicide Squad. It's just like, come on. Like, we know you've had some fire cast that you work with, man. So yeah, I feel like that's just something he has to say to, spice it up a bit. Like, man, this might be the best cast I ever worked with. Make everybody feel good, like you said, good press, and kind of keep it moving.
No doubt. I agree completely. Next, Supergirl. Gunn said this. We're now halfway through production on Supergirl, and it's directed by Craig Gillespie, and it's based on the Woman of Tomorrow comics with the script from Anna Nogueira that the studio apparently loved immediately. So it's allegedly getting good feedback from the studio at this
Mm-hmm.
point. They're still very early in the process, obviously filming right now. There was a photo that dropped, I think, today or a day ago of Millie
Mm-hmm.
Alcock holding the Woman of Tomorrow comics, if I'm not mistaken. And so this is kind of their next film after Superman. We won't really get
Mm-hmm.
anything else until this. You would have to imagine they tie into each other. These characters obviously related. So
Mm-hmm.
where are you at with Supergirl? What are your thoughts on that and how things are shaping up with it?
I'm pretty excited for it. I'm excited to see Supergirl on the big screen. Not only that, but specifically Woman of Tomorrow is interesting because I'm thinking, look, if Superman takes place in Metropolis and all that, I think Woman of Tomorrow, if I'm thinking right, is a more galactic tale, like a
Yeah.
more spacey story. And I think Crypto is there. I could be wrong about that, but I think Crypto is also there. So maybe that does tie into Superman somehow. Maybe Crypto has to go with Supergirl at the end or something. I don't know. But I am interested in this movie. I kind of like the idea of, this is Superman on the ground, this is Supergirl in space, kind of back to back. Like, look, these are the two looks of DC very early. The more ground approach, of course, embedding some other characters, and let's go ahead and do a galactic adventure right after to kind of set like, hey, this thing ain't all ground and nor is it all galactic. It can kind of be a mix of things. I'm kind of excited about Supergirl. I think it has a little bit of promise.
It certainly has to be better than the movie that came out in the 80s. I mean,
Oh
this is
man,
just,
that's just
it's kind of a given at this point. I mean, but I
oof.
like Millie Alcock a lot. I think she's really, really good. And so I think
Mhm.
her being cast as the character, smart choice. She's young too, so she can play her for a long
Yeah, for a
time
long time.
if
I
the
agree.
movie does well. And so, yeah, coming out with the Kryptonians immediately, feel good
Hmm.
about that. I like that. I
Yeah.
like those really being the anchors of what we're doing here. Moving on, Peacemaker season 2. This is interesting because we know Peacemaker is kind of a holdover from the
Hmm.
DCEU, but they are bringing over the character John Cena. All the cast has come back. Season 2 is happening. They mentioned at this press event that they've recently wrapped filming, and according to Peter Safran, it will debut in quote late August.
Hmm.
I will say this little intel: I have seen 5 episodes of Peacemaker season 2. I
How
think they're
many is
gonna
it? 18?
I think they're going to
18?
do 8. I
10?
don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I know they did 8 in season 1. I think they'll do
Hmm.
8. I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously. What I will say is that they actively address how it ties in, like what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
the connective tissue from the old universe to the new universe. And it's very, very connected to Superman. Very connected.
Okay.
In ways
Mhm.
that I can't even, I don't even truly know myself because, like,
Yeah.
certain stuff was just concealed, but I'm like, that's
Hmm.
clearly like a Superman thing right there. And so, but yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be fine. So I'm excited for Peacemaker season 2, and what they're gonna do here. But my big question and my big hesitation was, well, how do you make
Hmm.
this make sense with what you've already done, with the DCEU? But feels like they're on a good track to just weave it in nicely, continue that story thread, and do something that's still distinctive and different, but it obviously will
Hmm.
funnel up to the larger universe at hand.
Yeah, and I really like the cast of Peacemaker, man. They're all so enjoyable and so good of what they've been doing, and John Cena's only gonna get better.
Yeah.
I have a smaller follow up question. Did you feel any Creature Commandos in Peacemaker season 2? Like, did you? Because there was a lot of Peacemaker stuff in Creature Commandos. Like, there's a
Yes.
lot of people that were embedded in that series. So, like, did you
Absolutely.
feel any of that
I
in
will
Peacemaker season 2?
I will say that a main plot in Peacemaker season 2 is
Hmm.
something that gets set up briefly in Creature Commandos.
Okay,
It
that
becomes a
makes sense.
main driving force of, and it makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
And again, it's slightly tying over stuff from the old DCEU and the Suicide Squad film, but there's absolutely some connective tissue, and that's one of the main plot lines of season 2 so far. So
Oh.
it's all good stuff for sure. John Cena, man. How do you feel about this heel run so far, WWE? How he's been doing?
He just comes out.
What are you grading his report card so far on these fucking scathing promos that he's given to the audience?
It's so funny because everything he says, he's telling the truth. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
he
saying?
is.
Like us as fans who's been there the entire time is like, you ain't told a lie yet, brother. And so like right now it's an A. He hasn't had to do much. He just kind of comes out, talks shit, and then goes home. And I'm like, I'm here for it. I'm okay with it, man. So yeah, I think he's doing pretty good.
He's whipping ass right now. He's been the victim of a toxic relationship, and he's had enough. He's
Yes.
just had enough. He's ready to fucking do away with the fans. I'm here for it. Moving on, Clayface. They said that cameras are set to roll this summer with James Watkins currently in negotiations to direct. Safran described it as, quote, an amazing body horror film that reveals a compelling origin of a classic Batman villain, end quote. He added that, quote, Clayface is not as widely known as Penguin or Joker, but we think the story is equally resonant and thrilling and frankly even more terrifying, end quote. Does that get you excited for Clayface movie? Do you think it's the right move to do a villain-centric anti-hero story around a character, again, that, you know, a lot of people don't know, but, you know, certainly has a lot of pathos and a lot of backstory that could be explored?
Yeah, because you know Clayface, it feels like Clayface had always been set up to me for a movie. Like the character is an actor, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
let's play with that. Let's use that to make a movie, and I think they're taking the right approach by making it body horror. Yeah, it's Clayface. It's going to be weird and nasty, and I love that they got James Watkins. We both like to speak no evil. Let's do it, man. I think they got some interesting idea here. Again, I still got to execute, but I think it's a good idea. I really do. I do.
And it's it could be a tragic story too if you do it well enough. And I think that there's like a lot that you just emotionally what you can do with the character. Some really good potential there. So this is one, like, normally I would probably look at some of these things like, I don't know, but it could go an interesting route. So I'm kind of here for it. Next one up, The Brave and the Bold. In fact, let's just do these two together because we're gonna do a bigger Batman thing. But just the updates quickly. The Brave and the Bold. They said that, quote, it's in active development with the script currently being written. James Gunn did not name the writer, but he said that he's, quote, working very closely with the writer on Brave and the Bold, and the script is really good so far. They also provided another update about the Batman Part 2 with Matt Reeves. They said that Matt Reeves has yet to turn in a full script. Surprise, surprise. But what they've read so far is incredibly encouraging, according to Peter Safran. He also added that it is very unlikely that Robert Pattinson's Batman becomes the DCU Batman, shooting down the rumor that, you know, a lot of people have speculated about for a long time here. Again, I want to unpack this Batman stuff in a little bit more here, but just like general thoughts, Brave and the Bold. What do you make of this? Because it's not easy what they're trying to figure out here, I think, with like having their own Batman versus Pattinson and what he's already doing. So what do you make of just this conundrum that they have to sort of navigate?
Yeah. Again, I think shooting down the rumor is like, you know, fine. Like, okay, like I think I think initially when we first heard about this, we kind of knew or felt that like, yeah, it was just we were gonna end up with two different Batmans. But man, Brave and the Bold, not much to say. Like it's interesting they won't even tell us who the writer is. Part of me is like, oh, who's writing this movie? Like, why won't you tell anybody? But you know, it seems like a very general statement. Looks really good so far. It's like, sure, if you say so, whatever that means. But yeah, I don't know. It's not enough for me to really say on Brave and the Bold right now. Like, I need. Eventually, we're here pretty soon. The script needs to be finished. It's time to start hearing about casting news, like all kind of stuff. But until then, man, I really don't have much to say about it.
So at one point, Andy Muschietti was going to direct this movie. His name was conspicuously absent from this whole press thing. They did not bring him up. They haven't officially said that he's not directing, but I'm starting to bet that he's not directing this movie. I have a feeling that that's over. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it was because of, you know, the performance of The Flash. It just didn't do so well. Maybe they had different visions of, you know, what the movie was supposed to be. I'm not sure. Do you think James Gunn's going to direct this? Because he's writing the script, and it's very rare that James Gunn writes something and doesn't direct it. He's admitted himself that he doesn't like doing that. Like, he's talked about his experience on Dawn of the Dead, how that was just like, in Scooby-Doo, like, he was writing these movies and he couldn't direct them. He was like, that was horrible for me, honestly. Even though, you know, we like those movies, but just as a
Yeah.
creator, he just doesn't like that approach. And so I'm starting to think that he might take this on himself. And that's why they probably haven't
Mm.
announced a co-writer, because
Mhm.
they probably don't want to call too much attention to this other person who might be contributing, of course, to the story, because James Gunn himself just might ultimately step up and do it himself. But I don't know. Do you think that that's possible, or is he going to be so busy with, Superman 2, 3, 4, that he won't have
Mhm.
time to direct a Batman film?
That's really interesting. Part of me, again, I remember he was adamant about director Superman. He's like, I got to start this thing off myself. Like, this whole thing is my vision. Let me do this thing myself. Part
After
of me doesn't
Steven
hate.
Spielberg said no.
Yeah,
Spoiler.
after Spielberg said no, in particular. But I kind of like the idea of like, hey, let me do my Superman movie, let me do my Batman movie, and then maybe I can hand the reins off potentially to something else. But I don't know, man. I did also see something. It was like a couple months ago where they were just, the reason this movie is being talked about so weird is because after Batman 2 got delayed, they didn't want Brave and the Bold and Batman to come out around the same time. So they were like, well, how the hell are we going to figure this thing out? Or where are we going to move these movies around to? I'm not sure. But part of me likes the idea of, shoot, if I'm starting off Superman and I'm helping write Batman, shoot, let me help start off with Batman as well. I don't
Yeah,
hate it.
maybe so. Next one that they gave an update on was Swamp Thing, who currently that movie, James Mangold has been circling to possibly direct. They said this quote at the event. Obviously, James Mangold went off to make another wonderful film, and so the ball isn't really in his court. And that was
Mm-hmm.
it. That's all they said. So, not really any updates, but Swamp Thing, movie you want to see? Is this something you're excited about? Is James Mangold the right director for Swamp Thing? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't. That's what I think throws me off. Is like, oh, James Mangold. That's who we're picking for Swamp Thing. Part of me is like, y'all can't get James Wan back. Like James Wan right there. He would go crazy on a Swamp Thing movie. But yeah, I not too. I do want to see a Swamp Thing movie though. The TV show was pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
And I think he's a cool character to explore, and he does kind of exist in his own world. So I think a cool movie for something can be made. I don't know if people would go see it, but I like it as like a very artesian movie, you know what I'm saying? Like an artsy pick of like, oh shoot, Swamp Thing is out. I like a good creature feature. And I think if Clayface is successful, I think Swamp Thing also could be successful in a movie landscape. But James Mangold, I don't know about that part. Of course, like, I don't know if that's what I want to see from James Mangold in particular.
He's gonna set it in New Mexico. He's gonna put a guitar in his hand. It's gonna be a very, very different biographical film about the
For
Swamp
sure.
Thing human being and the character. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. But James Mangold can do anything.
Can do anything.
He's that talented. So
Mhm.
yeah, I guess as they said, the ball is in his court. But yeah, it's a very specific character, and you got to have a really specific take and sensibilities. And so I guess we'll have to see how it ties in. Dynamic duo. We had heard about this a few weeks ago, but Safran
Mhm.
said that, quote, it's in pre-production and it's described as a coming-of-age crowd pleaser being produced with Warner Brothers Animation and is written by Matt Aldridge, who wrote Coco. They also just announced Coco 2 is coming out in
He
2029
did.
over at Disney. Dynamic duo. We talked about this on the podcast. This is going to
Mhm.
be, I believe, a theatrically released animated movie. So this will sort of feed, some of the ideas that we were talking about earlier, um, where they're going to produce an animated movie to come out in theaters and really kind of lean into that, which, just doesn't happen often with these big shared cinematic universes. And so,
Mhm.
is this something you're excited about? I know we did already sort of circle this and kind of discuss it, but what's your level of enthusiasm for this particular property and what it could be?
It's really hard for me to place it right now, I think, and it's just to try to figure out where are we going, because it feels like they're trying to establish the Bat family very early, right? Like we're talking about Brave and the Bold, which means you get Damien in particular. Now you're talking
Yeah.
about Dynamic Duo, which is two other Robins that we're talking about, and it's like, okay, what, that's cool, but like, I don't know, it's animated, and so it does feel like, how are we weaving this thing together? Or what does this tapestry of the DCU look like, particularly with the Bat family? Part of me likes the idea of establishing the Bat family, of course. Like, we haven't got it. I want that. But also, I think it's the way they're going about it. I just don't know how to feel about it yet. And I think it's going to take some time for me to see how this goes. But I love that it's being written by Matt Aldridge. I think that's pretty cool. Him doing something different, him being good at writing animation. So, yeah, we'll see there.
That's a good point about the Bat family. It does feel like we are putting those pieces in motion pretty quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder why. I do wonder, like, what's the case for that? Maybe it's just because, like, as you said, we haven't seen it, and so this just might be the time to fully
Something
explore
new. Yeah.
something new.
Hmm.
We already have origin stories and year ones and all of that stuff, but like, if we're gonna do
Hmm.
something different that's unique to the DCU, then we have to bring in all those other supporting characters for this Bat family. So, yeah. I like that it's animation at least. It's a different
Hmm.
experiment, but again, that's a lot of pressure, man. You don't want to put out an animated movie and people think of it as small time and people don't go see it. Like, you
Mm.
don't want a movie to
Yeah.
come out and honestly, no disrespect to any of these movies, but you don't want to put it out and it makes like, less than $100 million at the box
Yeah.
office. And
I agree.
some of those productions have done that over at Warner Brothers Animation, where it's just like it doesn't feel like it's important or essential, to what they're gonna do.
And thinking about I guess Jason Todd in particular. Can you make like I don't know. I feel like this movie, anytime he's involved, I feel like it has to be rated R or like
It kind of
a
does,
cra-
yeah.
or like a crazy PG-13, like an Insidious level PG-13 kind of move. Like it has to just be like because he's pretty violent. Red Hood is, so yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. That makes me also think like this is probably not gonna be a kid movie, even though it's animation.
Mm.
It probably has to be PG-13 and up. Like I think that's another important thing that has to be included in this movie. And Matt Aldridge, you did Coco. That's we talking about two different things here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting creative choice and direction that they're going to have
Mhm.
to figure out what they do with that and how they litigate that. That is a very violent character, dark character, and so I don't know how you translate that for mass consumption. If that's what they want to do, they might not,
If
but
that's what, yeah.
yeah, that'll
Mhm.
be interesting to see. And last but not least is the Authority, which is pretty much the one project that they outright said like, "Hey, we have not made any progress on this," and so they said this development has slowed as other projects took priority. James Gunn specifically said, quote, out of all the projects that we had, everything is still 100% fully on track. The one that kind of got messed with through all the other good things that are happening is Authority. And the script has also had a harder time coming along. So that's been a part of it as well.
Mhm.
Um, I like the transparency that he's just like,
Yeah.
hey guys, this one, it's not moved. Like, it's really been tough to crack, and other things
Mhm.
kind of took shape before this one. So I do like that. Now the Authority, I was interested in it. I don't know if I want to say excited, but I was interested to see what it could be and the potential for it. Again, something very different that we haven't explored before. But um the transparency is good, but you also, again, going back to DCEU conversations, announcements
Mhm.
before, putting the cart before the horse. It's like, okay, we don't want to start to
Mhm.
chip away at any of the faith that we have, because we're already having questions about the updates about a lot of these projects and where they're going to go and if we're actually going to see them. And it feels like, from what they're saying, like, yeah, everything is moving forward, but at the same time, there's always just that possibility, like, yeah, something just might not
Mhm.
come to fruition. It just might not work out. So again, like the transparency, but it's also like one of those small, I don't want to say red flag, but it's like a yellow flag. Like,
Mhm.
okay, we'll remember that and we'll figure it out. Hopefully it can come together.
Yeah, and I think that's the part I do like about the transparency is like, oh, like you have a lot of moving pieces, and in order for the authority has a lot kind of going against it in that it is another team up movie. It's a group people have never met before, which we know he's good at, right? Guardians, but that's also part of his detriment too. Like we've seen you put together a random ragtag group. You've just done it in Peacemaker, Suicide Squad, Guardians. How's the authority going to set itself apart while also being, successful and not too off the wall and weird and loving the characters and all these things? So part of me understands why it's like that. But for all those reasons, that's why it's a yellow flag. Like you said, it's like, man, how are y'all going to pull this thing off, especially with characters that we don't know? The characters are really cool, by the way. Apollo's really cool. Midnighter's really cool. Jenny Sparks. The Authority is really cool. But again, fitting it in your new vision, I think it is hard, and I understand why he's having trouble with it. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he can pull it off though. I think it'll be one of the more projects that stands out again because everything is so different for who they are as a comic book entity or as a group.
Yeah, you do have to wonder how many teams are we really going to do here? Like,
Yeah.
are we building
Hmm.
out a league here? Is it going to be like the NBA? We got 30 teams, you know, coming
Right.
together. Like, how many teams
Hmm.
can we really do? How many times can we run this play before
Exactly.
it's like, all right, guys, like we see it. I mean, even like Superman is kind of, there's some team
Yeah,
elements
it's
to
a lot
that.
of people in that movie.
Big cast, big
Mr.
cast.
Terrific in that thing, and
Yeah,
Supergirl,
it's
and it's a
given
lot.
it's given JSA, to some extent,
Yeah, it
like that.
is.
That's gonna have
Mhm.
like a team of heroes come in to fight alongside Superman or something of that nature. So yeah, got to be careful with that. It's not on the list, but we know it's happening because they're filming right now. Lanterns, the HBO show, which
Mhm.
is in production right now. We know Aaron Pierre is cast. We know that Kyle
Yep.
Chandler has been cast. They're going to be playing John Stewart and not Guy
Guy
Gardner.
Gardner. Hal Jordan.
Hal Jordan. Guy Gardner
Mhm.
is Nathan Fillion. So yeah, Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
They're filming right now. They released a still. There's been some, early positive feedback and buzz about the
Mhm.
show. It's going to come out next year on Max and kind of be the first live action DC show. You excited about this? How are you feeling about, what Lanterns could be? We're not getting the movie as we talked about earlier, but we are going to get this
Mhm.
property finally within the show and kind of explore multiple Green Lanterns and how they tie in with the Green Lantern Corps and then ultimately, I guess, with the rest of these heroes.
I'm pretty excited for it, man. I really am. I think they're doing something. I, I guess kind of smart. Again, our first reaction is like just make a movie, but there is something particular with the Green Lanterns that like a lot of people don't get on a surface level, or a lot of people haven't explored on the surface level. And there's a lot to them. Like a lot of people don't know. There's the yellow Lantern Corps and the red and the blue. Like a lot of people don't know all that other stuff either. So I think there is a lot of story to get behind when it comes to them, and I think the show will help everybody rally around. I think our lanterns that we know and love make it a pretty interesting story. But yeah, I'm excited for it, man. I think it looks good. And again, I love that it's like an HBO show. I don't know. I think that'll be really cool week to week. People talking about it and having buzz around it. I think it might be a good idea.
Yeah, I think this is a really really important show for them.
Hmm.
This is going to be crucial, for what they're trying to do here to show like, hey, we can do these shows consistently, make them work. This is a platform that they can work on and be a part of. And look, Damon Lindelof, he's an executive producer on the show. We
Ooh,
we,
it's
we
my
saw what
boy.
we saw what he did with Watchmen. He lovingly took care of that. I know he has love and affection for Lanterns as a property as well. So I have a lot of faith, but it's a really important project for them to try to get right. And we've seen cinematically Lanterns has not done so well. So now
Hmm.
we have an opportunity to just do something unique and separate and serialized and hopefully really build out a corner of the DCU that's just not been given a ton of time and justice to do so. So
Yeah.
I'm really really looking forward to it. I'm really excited about it. This is going to be one of those big projects to look out for in 2026. Now moving on. Two last big things to talk about. First and foremost, Batman. We spoke about this a little bit already. So
Hmm.
there is it's a problem. I think it's a problem. We have the Brave
Yep.
and the Bold, a part of the DCU from James Gunn. But we also have Matt Reeves still moving along with his Batman Robert Pattinson films. So the
Hmm.
Batman Part 2 has been delayed significantly. The movie was initially supposed to come out in October of this year, 2025, but it got pushed
So
back
sad.
to 2026, and then it got pushed back again to 2027. So it's coming out a
Oh
full
my
two
god.
years after. At this point, 2 full years after we were supposed to get it. As they said in their updates, they've now received the full script from Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves does take his time. I don't know what else might be going on there. Don't want to speculate on that, but it's going to be a while. If they stick to that release date, it'll be 5.5 years between part one and part two. It's a long time to wait. James Gunn tried to cap and say like, oh yeah, typically sequels take that long to get developed these days. I'm sorry, James Gunn. No. Some sequels do. Many sequels don't take that long. We
Hmm.
live in a society where we're getting these things every couple of years, every 3 years. Like that's become normal.
Hmm.
If you really get the commitment from the filmmakers and the crew. This is what I want to ask you though. Two Batmen potentially at play. They're
Hmm.
gonna have to really deal with this.
Yep.
They're saying that Pattinson's Batman is not going to be in the DCU. Okay, I can respect that. That's fine. It makes sense, I guess. But
Hmm.
should he? Should he be the Batman in the DCU? Is there like an argument that can be made that it would
Hmm.
maybe be better? The first movie was incredibly successful.
It was.
Penguin incredibly successful. It's a very different take and tone than I think what we're gonna see in Superman.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna clash. But I don't know, man. I don't know how you make this work. I don't know how you make two Batman and live action work.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to have to wait until the Batman Part 2 comes out to get the Brave and the Bold, we're going to be fucking waiting. Like, we're
Forever,
not going to get a Batman in the DCU proper for a long time.
man.
So I don't know. I don't even know what I'm really asking. Is this the right move? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
But it's a problem for sure, because as quickly
Mm-hmm.
as they gotten the Superman stuff figured out, to wait as long for a Batman in this universe,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's ideal. I don't think anybody wants that situation. So I feel like James Gunn and Peter Safran might be like, "Fuck, we gotta stick this out with Matt Reeves until he's done." And I don't know if they really want to do that.
Yeah, it is really difficult. It really is, and what do you do? That's the crazy thing, is what do you do? Because you know the Batman is going to be successful. It has already proven that it can and is successful. But you have your own idea of this new DC universe where you have your own Batman, which in particular is the brave and the bold. You have Robin. Robert Pattinson Batman ain't ready for Robin. He just met Catwoman. He knew. He was year 2.
Well,
You
by
know
the
what I'm
time they
saying?
make his second movie, he's gonna be old enough for
He
fucking
gonna be
Robin.
old as
He's
hell.
gonna be
Yeah, it's like
$45.
you might as well throw him in the movie at that point. Shoot, which part of me feels like they should just go ahead and make that the case. Matt Reeves, look, if I'm Loki, I'm calling up Matt Reeves right now. If I'm James Gunn, is like, you just might have to put Robin in your movie, bro.
Yeah,
The
just
Batman Part 2 is now Brave and the Bold. It's
just
now,
re-engineer the script. Just we're just gonna change this and just make it
because
that.
it's and in some ways, as much as James Gunn wants to tell his own version of his universe, it's kind of a cheat code over there in the Batman. Like, it's kind of already working. Like, it's kind of something. It's almost like something you might not have to think about. If that makes sense. It's like, maybe we should take this off your plate. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. Like, and now you don't have to worry about, you know what I mean, all the meat and potatoes of what your Batman in particular is going to be. So yeah, it's hard, but part of me does feel like they should work it out. It would make everything easier. We don't have to go through 30,000 castings for who Batman's going to be. We don't have to,
All right.
like, that's my least favorite part
I have
about
no
us
patience.
rebooting anything, is how many Batmans we about to have to go through, or all these casting rumors, or I'm sick of it. I really am. Like, let's cast somebody, let them do what they need to do, and let the movie come out. And the biggest problem here is there ain't no movie's gonna come out because we're waiting. So it's like, I just feel like if we go ahead and go with the Batman Part 2 as it, we won't have to wait as much longer. Hey, y'all, this thing is now in the DCEU. We'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
we'll figure it out. Because honestly, part of me feels like they can figure out the tone differences. Like, the Batman is, of course, is way different from
There's a
whatever.
way. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's what Metropolis in
Gotham
Gotham
are.
is.
Yeah. They're two
They two
completely
different.
different. They're the light and the dark. One is gritty and supposed to be like the worst of New York, and one is supposed to be this
Mhm.
idealistic, futuristic city. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Let's use that.
Yeah.
Let's use that. And I feel like even Batman the animated series and Superman the animated series kind of did a good job with that. Like,
Sure, yeah.
Batman was hella dark, and Superman, the opening song of the Superman cartoon was beautiful. I was like, yeah, this is different. So I feel like it's definitely possible, man. I really do.
I think that they say that it's not connected. I still think that there is a small, and I'm not saying I want
Yeah.
this per se, but I think that there's still a small chance that they might walk this back, and they might be like,
Yeah.
actually, guys, we're just gonna make it all. We're just gonna make it work. We're gonna figure it out. Now, there is to try to reverse engineer something like that, there can be drawbacks. There
Mhm.
certainly can be things that
For
that
sure.
really fuck you up if you're not like building it from the ground up.
Mhm.
So I understand the desire to not do it, and I think my natural inclination is to say, like, yeah, do your own thing. The problem does become, well, it's like, well, if we have to wait until Matt Reeves is finished, I'm
Mhm.
gonna be a senior citizen. Like, we're
Yeah,
we're we're
that's the problem.
taking we're taking a long time, and I love Matt Reeves, but man, he takes his time,
He
and
does. Mhm.
I don't know if that time, I don't know if we were afforded that type of time,
Mhm.
waiting in between projects. And maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, if the Batman Part 2 comes out and it's amazing, and then the Brave and the Bold hits a year later and it's amazing, I mean, we'll forget all of
Mhm.
this. It won't even matter.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the lead up until that, just the discourse around it is going to be really, it's going to be really tough to just like try to litigate this stuff and just figure out how does this work? What place does it work in? And is The Brave and the Bold the right story to tell? Like, I like the announcement, I
Mhm.
like the idea, but I don't, maybe that's not the
Maybe,
right intro story to tell.
yeah, it comes
Maybe
later.
maybe
Yeah.
that comes later. Maybe that's the second movie.
Mhm.
Maybe we have to figure out something a little bit different to still make it make sense with
Mhm.
the new Batman that doesn't interfere with what
Mhm.
Matt Reeves is
Let's get
doing.
to
So
Leah in here. Damon got to come from somewhere.
that's true.
So
That's very
maybe we get
true.
to Leah in here
that
first
that
before
could
we
be a
go that
whole
far.
movie, Talia
Yeah.
and Raish
Mhm.
and all of that stuff. That could be a whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a lot they can do with Batman, but it's kind of an unenviable position just because of sort of the waters that they have to navigate here.
Yeah.
Closing out this conversation, of course, is the first movie up on the docket, Superman, coming out in July. It's around the corner. We're probably going to be getting a trailer very, very soon here. In fact, CinemaCon is happening this week, and there's going to be a presentation for Warner Brothers. I know
Yeah.
that they're going to be rolling some stuff out. There's already like some new marketing pieces that have dropped. But what I really want to talk about is the fucking importance of this movie, just how vital this actually is. And we've said it, we've talked about it, but as we
Yeah.
get closer, it just becomes more and more apparent like, oh, this is like everything. This really, really is
Mhm.
just super, super important because not only is it the beginning of their new DCU, it's a new chapter. Not only is it a new Superman with David Corn Sweat and an entirely new cast, a new Lois Lane and Lex Luthor, and a completely changing of the tone and of the guard. Like, it's your opening statement, of what this whole thing is supposed to be. It's as if we knew at the time in 2008 how important Iron Man would ultimately be. We didn't really know it at the time. We only knew it in hindsight because of what they pulled off. But we would
Mhm.
place the same type of pressure on Iron Man if we knew everything that was going to come after it, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm. Mhm.
also, even beyond all of that, Warner Brothers as a movie studio
Mhm.
and what they're dealing with, and just the massive importance that this film now means to them as a viable movie studio in Hollywood, has also just become increasingly apparent. There's all these stories going around about David Zaslav considering replacing Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi as studio heads over there due to some of these recent films that haven't performed so well, like Joker Folie à Deux, one of their biggest money losers. There's also
Mhm.
this new initiative where Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi, they've been very filmmaker driven, making a lot of relationships with people like Bong Joon-ho and Ryan
Yep.
Coogler and
Mhm.
Paul Thomas Anderson, and giving them pretty big budgets for these movies that, I don't know if they're going to make that much money if we're being all that honest. And
Yeah.
Zaslav is like, we need big IP. We need to compete. We need to compete with the Disneys of the world and then,
Mhm.
these other big studios. And I think Superman just has to be a home run. Like, there's
Yeah.
no scenario that this can be soft or average or
Mhm.
middling or it
Yeah.
was okay. Like, there's really almost no room for error on this movie. And I hate to overstate this stuff. I hate to be that guy, but I
It
think it
is
might
what
be
it is.
warranted this time, right? Like,
Yeah,
we
it
just
is
might
what it
be
is.
we might be in that place where like everything is kind of riding on this movie to not only launch
Mhm.
this universe, but to just make sure that fucking Warner Brothers like exist after this. Otherwise, they might go the way of 20th Century and get bought out.
Oof.
That's possible. That
Oof.
that that could be on the table. That they just get absorbed by another studio and they they
Yeah.
they they no longer control their destiny. Moving forward
Mhm.
because this has to work for them. This is just so important.
Yeah, and it's all the budget for this movie is wow. It ain't
It ain't
nothing
cheap. Nope.
and it's funny because I feel like I remember James Gunn like kind of like disputing the accuracy of how expensive the movie, but like regardless, it got to be close. You know what I'm saying? Like I think somebody was like, this movie cost 350 mil, and
Oh
James
my
Gunn was like,
god.
"What?" I'm like, "Nah, this movie probably cost something pretty crazy." So if honestly, and it is a high number, but like we got to shoot for the Billy. You have to shoot for the Billy here. You have to shoot for the Billy. You like this movie needs to be good. It needs to people need to come out in droves to watch Superman because, like you said, it's that important. It really is, and I wish it wasn't. I wish it didn't have that weight on it. I really do. I really wish it didn't have that weight on it, but it does. This is the circumstances that we are in. It's one of those. I will say there's a lot of good positive reviews, not review, but excitement from the internet. Like anytime I see something about Superman, everybody, of course, there was like the weird stuff with like the David Corn Sweat. Everybody was tripping off of one of the trailers. I don't know, that stuff was stupid, but there is a lot of people rallying around this film and excited to see a new Superman. There is an appetite for it, so part of me is excited for the other people that are excited, like, yeah, y'all see, I think the vision, and I love to see that y'all are excited for it, because there's another version of this where like everyone's like, hell no, we don't want no Superman. I'm so sick of Superman. I don't want to see this, but that's not the feeling I'm getting. So man, they have this is hard, bro. It really is. I am so nervous. Not for, again, the quality of the film. I'm honestly not nervous for the quality at all, but I am nervous for the success in the box office and the way people are going to talk about it. And like, I'm really nervous, bro. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's yeah, wow. I can't think of a movie in this century in particular that's really had this type of importance placed behind it. It's few and
Mm-hmm.
far in between. And you know, I think what we have to see here, we have to see a full court press from Warner Brothers. They have to
Mm-hmm.
put every resource that they possibly can behind this movie to
Yeah.
ensure that as many people possible will go out to see it, to ensure its
Mm-hmm.
success. We need to see Barbie levels of saturation,
Facts.
and just like the marketing and everything. It's just, it has to be that. Now, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it won't be Barbie. I will say that, but it has to,
Yeah. Well,
feel like that. It has to feel like that
yeah.
can't miss
Mm-hmm.
FOMO moment. It has to
Yeah.
feel like something where it's like, oh my god, that's important. I must go out to the theaters and see it. And it's been a really long time since any of these comic book films have felt that way in particular. And
Mm-hmm.
not only does this determine the success for DC, but I think it kind of determines the success for the entire genre and even for Marvel. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that Marvel is also rooting for the success of Superman? Do you think that
Yeah.
they have a vested interest in this movie performing well? Because it also might be an indicator
Yeah.
of what their movies may do, and the fact that, like, hey, we need that to actually crack and work, because we also are suffering and we also need to come back and showcase why these movies still matter. So do you think that Kevin Feige is sitting up in his office also nervous, like, man, I really hope James Gunn can pull it off over there. I'm actually rooting for him, even though they used to work together, they're not working together anymore. But do you think he's actually rooting
Mm-hmm.
for the success of that movie when it comes out?
Yes, because I really do genuinely believe everybody eats together. Even though everybody is also competing, I really do believe everybody also eats together. I really feel like, let's say Superman first week, nuts, right? Crazy. Boy, everybody gonna be like, we gotta go watch Fantastic Four. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that energy is going to be up again, kind of like when we were saying superhero, the genre was hitting on all cylinders. And in a lot of ways, it may not be to the same degree, but it's kind of feeling like the same way with Fantastic Four in Marvel. Like, this movie has to hit. Like, this is low key a pretty important movie for them, and the fact they're coming out weeks apart, I think it is related, man. I think they kind of need each other to survive, but mainly I think Marvel is rooting for Superman because they'll turn around and hopefully some of that return will come back on the Fantastic Four, and people will be on this superhero high, like, wow, that was good. Can Marvel kind of turn around and do the same thing? And what's also really cool about this is the earliest superheroes we've ever gotten. Superman is the beginning. Superman is the genesis
Mhm.
of this thing. Fantastic Four is legit. What do we call them? The first family. They are legit like the first group of superheroes we had ever seen. And so, man, it's just both these movies are really important, but I definitely think Marvel is kind of rooting for DC here. Again, no matter, we know it'll always be competition, but this is one of those moments. It's like you kind of got to put it to the side. I'm like, this is friendly competition. Like, we want y'all to do good, so we can also do good, and we can all eat together. I definitely think that's a thing.
I agree. I think that they are absolutely wanting this movie to hit and be a massive success. It means so much beyond just DC, Warner Brothers, like the entire genre, the medium of what we've been experiencing. Like, it needs huge consistent wins. We need
Yeah.
multiple wins, and so
Hmm.
the momentum that they can gain from a high performing movie like Superman 4, Fantastic Four, could mean a whole lot for them as well. You don't want to see a dud
Yeah.
come out and then all of a sudden a couple of weeks later people are like, oh, another one. I don't want to. I don't care to
Hmm.
bother.
Exactly.
A rising tide raises all ships, and so yeah, this
Hmm.
is the time to showcase that, like, DC, it's still a valuable IP, which has been somewhat of a debate for the past few years, just because of the low performance of a lot of their movies and the disinterest that's grown, and some of
Hmm.
the jadedness that I think a lot of us have accumulated. Like, we just don't care about some of these things that come out, and so how do we make it feel important and relevant and timely again? That has to be achieved in Superman. Last question: if it doesn't work, if it doesn't hit, Like, what then? What happens? Do they just keep making movies? Like, are we just like gonna press forward and try to figure it out? Do they have to seriously reevaluate like the whole plan at that point? Is DC just over at the movies as a viable franchise, at least for the
Oof.
next, I don't know, 7, 8 to 10 years, perhaps until they inevitably get sold off to another tech conglomerate and then they try to do something with it. Like, I don't know, but like in the chance that this doesn't do what it needs to do, what
We.
what would you say happens to DC in the immediate future after that?
I have no idea. Cause it's again, it's so crazy. Cause you tell us you're halfway through production with Supergirl, that movie has to come out, don't it? Like, if Superman is bad, does Supergirl still get released? Does David Zaslav Batgirl, Supergirl? Like, does
Yikes.
he? You know what I'm saying?
He'll
It can't
probably
be Batman.
release. He'll probably
Yeah,
release
it
it, but
can't.
that'll be their last movie. That'll
The
be
last
the
movie.
only other one that they do. Which, ugh.
Yeah, I really don't know because the cancellations and the panic would be on a whole nother level of like I think they do cancel it. I do. I think they cancel it, and I think they sit this out for a while. I think they say
Like cancel the
we
whole DCU project and just like
yeah,
say
like
like, yeah, we're gonna.
y'all might have to. We just might have to do something else at this point because we're putting so much faith in James Gunn and Peter Safran that you need that first good token of faith. Like, you kind of already talked about it, but we need Iron Man. And in fact, Iron Man wasn't the most successful movie ever, but it was like that's what
Yeah,
this thing could be. We
yeah.
need that reaction to Superman. We need that's what this thing could be. That's what we need. And if we don't get that, and if the execs aren't feeling that from the audience, it's like, well, we're not gonna spend all this money. We can't. Like, we've already seen how this goes. We can't spend the money. Let's revisit in 5 to 10. Let's talk about this some other. I really do think they might have to cancel, bro. And that's just from a business perspective. Like, it's not working. We tried something new. It didn't work. We got to get out of here and figure it out later on down the line.
I mean, yeah, we might be dealing with the Dark Universe situation here. Like, RIP, it's over. It's
R.I.P.
really over. Cast announcements and photos and projects, and then all of a
Oh
sudden,
my
just
god.
in the snap of a finger, no more. It's just not a
It all
thing.
be
I
gone.
mean, I do not want this at all. I'm just asking for the sake of conversation. Like, it's, we talk about this
Yeah.
stuff, but it's a possibility that we do have to confront and think about. And my desire and hope, of course, is that the complete opposite happens, that it's the most successful movie of the year and that it revitalizes the entire franchise and it creates 10 years of good fortune for DC. I've been rooting for DC for so long and I want them to get their shit together. We have an opportunity for that to be the case. Probably the best opportunity we've had since this all started back in 2013. And so
Mm,
now I just need people to show up. I agree with
mm,
you that I'm not at all worried about the quality of this. Like,
mm.
James Gunn has not missed in I don't know when. Like, I just, it just doesn't happen. And after even just like watching these new episodes of Peacemaker, I'm just like, God damn it, he did it again. He's just like,
He
this
did it
guy
again.
does it every single time. And so
Yeah.
I think the movie will be good. I think it's going to be entertaining and deliver all the feels and the stuff that we want out of the character. But I do need people to show up, and so
Mhm,
hopefully the resonance of the character and just the idea that a good movie will prevail, that
mhm.
could still work and still be something that people get excited about. Hopefully that's enough, because that's not always been enough. We've seen really good movies come out and people just don't show up. That's
Yeah.
happened a lot. That happened with one of his movies, The Suicide Squad. Really good movie. Nobody
Mhm.
went and saw it. It
Nobody
did.
has seen it.
Nobody seen it.
Mhm. Very
So
good movie.
we just need people to really show up and hopefully give this the attention that I think that they'll certainly need to continue on with this project in the future of this franchise. And so we will ultimately have to see. But folks, with all of that out of the way, that's all we have on the final word on the DC universe, and that's all we have on this podcast. Thank you again for tuning into another episode of Two Black Nerds. We only have 3 episodes left, and the next 2 we're going to be doing a very, very similar exercise such as this. Next week we're going to be giving our final word on Star Wars, the Star Wars universe, and where things stand with that. And that's going to be an interesting conversation because,
Ooh-wee.
yeah, their past few years have been quite turbulent, and they have a
Mm.
very interesting future ahead of them. And so we're going to litigate and talk about all the previous things with the Star Wars universe, as well as some of the things that we have to look forward to. And the week after that, we will come and address Marvel and the future of the MCU, and of course, what's on the horizon with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars before we round things out in a few weeks with our mailbag final episode. So plenty to look forward to over the course of these next 3 episodes. But until then, we will see y'all next time.
Yes, sir. We are Audi 5000. Please check out our final season collection at twoblacknerds.com. And remember, always bet on black. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Thank you for listening to another episode of Two Black Nerds, where we're too black.
Too nerdy.
And we out, y'all. Peace.